We're waiting to go on the air before I start the meeting. If, for public comment, if anybody wants to sign up for public comment, please sign on that piece of paper there.
Oh, my apologies. I think we missed it. Oh, we did miss it. Then my apologies. I'm gonna look.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to call the meeting to order and start with pledge allegiance to the flag.
Yep, for the public comment. Yep, they'll call you up.
Pledge allegiance to the flag. United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And can I say I don't want to comment after the fact? It's like.
Okay, so just a welcome to our beautiful new space. I reminisce because in 1996 I was in this room on council in a totally different platform. So thank you to staff for all their efforts. Thank you to CCN for these beautiful table. And IT is doing a great job getting us online, and if we have any hiccups, we'll work through them as we go through. I'd also like to have Nicole stand up, please. Nicole Tillotson, our new city clerk. I'd like to have everybody notice her, please. And we'll go with the roll call, Nicole.
Counselor Brennan.
Here.
Counselor Whitfield.
Here.
Counselor Levin.
I am here.
Counselor Peeler.
Here.
Counselor Grimaldi.
Here.
Counselor Gillette.
Here.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Here.
Counselor Morocco.
Here.
Mayor Valentino.
Here. Another housekeeping item is we have mics. They look a lot like we used to have, but you cannot turn them off. So just so everybody knows, your mic is going to be live the whole time. So just be conscious of that. I'd also, at this point, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. Excuse me for organizing myself. We're going to add 2 items and take 1 item off. We're going to add we're going to add a discussion on committee structure for city council. I'd also like to add establishing a public hearing in the first reading of an ordinance to short-term rentals. And I'd like to remove the resolution under old business, a resolution adopting a license fee for short-term rentals. And I so move, and I need a second. Second. Councilor Grimaldi. And we'll have the clerk call the roll on amending the agenda.
Mayor, can you repeat the motion, please?
I made the motion to amend the agenda to add a discussion on committee structure and set a public hearing in the first reading of an ordinance for short-term rentals, and to remove the resolution under old business, which is a resolution adopting license fee for short-term rentals.
Thank you.
And I was seconded by Councilor Grimaldi, and I need you to call the roll on that, please.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Counselor Brennan.
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield.
Aye.
Counselor Levin.
Aye.
Counselor Peeler.
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi.
Aye.
Counselor Gillette.
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Aye.
Counselor Morocco.
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye again. Thank you. We're moving on. Next will be a public hearing for Restore New York, and I'll lump these together. Restore New York Project Number 1 and Restore New York Project Number 2. If anybody would like to speak on either one of those, please come to the podium.
Is that the Castle Street, low-income housing project?
David, can you?
That is one of the properties.
Wonderful. Okay.
I'm going to ask you to please come to the podium, just state your name. Thank you very much.
My first time.
That's no problem. This is my millionth time, and I haven't got comfortable with it yet.
First time in this life. Anyway, so hi, my name is Michael Bentley. My fiance and I just bought a beautiful little house. It's a dream come true. It's over there on, good old Castle Street. And, I'm a good, hard-working American. And, I watched Time News last night. Time magazine. Oh, I'm sorry, I read the article. It was a 26-minute read. Fiance and I read it out loud. It was pretty crazy. So I look at my neighbors up Castle Street. Oh my gosh. It's one of the most beautiful neighborhoods I've ever seen in this damn country. Hard-working people, their whole lives. They built up Castle Heights. They've maintained their world. They went to school. They kept working. They didn't stop because somebody told them, oh, wait, there's a problem with society. You gotta slow your roll. You can't pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Yo, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. Single mom, 2 younger brothers, went to work as soon as I could. Got into Syracuse University on a hardship scholarship. Studied physics. Now I'm a laborer. I work my ass off. Pardon my French.
Language, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir. American, not French. We don't swear. Okay. So I have reasons against crime. It's on the rise in this city. No denying it. And we just moved in March. I've already had people walking through my backyard. It's insane. We got defense. We put Ring cameras all around the house. We got to defend our castle. This is America. I already said we all work hard for what we have. Geneva is a city of higher learning. Several colleges here. We all work hard for what we have. And the counterculture of the underprivileged is killing us. We've got some alternatives. Maybe a small business auction. My fiance and I are vegan. We would love to start a vegan restaurant right here in Geneva. One of these days, we're saving up. We just bought the house. All right? But there's a nice .88 acre lot over on the other side of town, right near a place called the Cracker Factory. A move like this is bound to get noticed after what happened last night with Trump. Sanctuary cities, I've lived in 2 of them. I've lived in Syracuse, I've lived in Poughkeepsie. Great histories in those cities. Did you know that sanctuary cities suffer the highest number of cyber terrorism? I know they don't really talk about the Red Scare anymore, but that sounds to me like the Red Scare 2.0.
Michael, this is a public hearing on the
Yeah.
Restore New York. Your focus,
It looks to me like it's right now it's Trump, or down the fucking road it's El Chapo.
Michael.
God bless you all.
Thank you.
I've said my piece.
Okay. Anybody else on the public hearing for Restore New York funds? If not, we'll call public hearing closed, and we're going to move on to proclamations.
Thank you for letting me speak, man.
You're welcome. Okay, the first one is Public Service Recognition Week. During Public Service Recognition Week, residents and visitors of the City of Geneva recognize all city public employees who each day make significant contributions to the well-being of our residents and communities. Whereas the City of Geneva, the local workforce, provides critical services that our community rely on, including transportation, public safety, recreation, and many more important responsibilities, policies, and functions that government resources implement and oversee. And whereas we are grateful for to the many public servants at all levels, including military personnel, police officers, firefighters, social workers, first responders, healthcare professionals, highway and maintenance workers, teachers, laborers, safety inspectors, administrative staff, engineers, computer technicians, along with countless others. We thank them for their professional efforts that are a fundamental part of people's lives. And whereas day in and day out, our public employees provide diverse services demanded by Genevans of their government with efficiency, integrity, and accountability. And whereas we as Geneva City Council take this opportunity to thank the hundreds of thousands of dedicated public employees who work at the state, county, city, and every other level of government. Now, therefore, I, Steve Valentino, Mayor of the City of Geneva, do hereby proclaim May 6th through May 12th, 2024 as Public Service Recognition Week in the City of Geneva and encourage all people to show appreciation for those serving as public employees across the state and local governments. Our next proclamation was an add-in, and just a note to this proclamation. This gentleman who just recently passed away, we celebrated his life yesterday, did a lot of things for the City of Geneva, so I thought it was proper that we bring this proclamation forward. And I have a little bit of a history I want to talk about after the proclamation that was provided by one of our counselors who worked closely. The gentleman was Deacon Henry Farrell, whereas the city council was saddened to learn the recent death of Deacon Henry Farrell. And whereas Deacon Farrell was raised in Geneva, where he graduated from Geneva High School and became a pillar of the community. And whereas Deacon Farrell had a passion for people in need, this passion led him to found Food Justice, where he grew and harvested food for the community over time. This project grew from a parking lot at Mount Olive Church, expanding to a building. And whereas Deacon Henry Farrell dedicated his time and efforts not only to food justice, but to deserts, not only in Geneva, but globally, as well as his true passion for his religious beliefs. And whereas this city council wishes to express its sorrow in the loss of a very valued member of our community and respected individual. Now therefore be it resolved that this city council, on behalf of its members, both past and present, mourns the death of Deacon Henry Farrell and extends its sympathy to his family. And I want to thank Councilor Lavin for bringing this information forward, because he worked closely with Henry. Henry and his food justice movement was a leader in understanding the reality of food insecurity among many in this community. He raised funds to establish coolers and a safe food handling procedures. He formed alliances with nonprofits across the community to facilitate distribution. Then he literally led teams of gleaners into the farm fields to gather fruits and vegetables that have fed hundreds with free, healthy food. Henry and his team spurred improvements in food collaboration among other pantries, including the Center of Concern, the Salvation Army, and the Community Lunch Program, and the Boys and Girls Club, that now deliver food to thousands of local residents each month. We're going to miss Henry. Okay, moving on. Next is a presentation, Q1 financial report by our City Comptroller.
I don't want to jinx myself, but I think this might be one of my shorter quarter presentations, but it probably is going to jinx it. So as the packets are coming down, you'll see there's 3 different packets there: the general fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund. There's nothing really out of the ordinary to report on any of the funds right now. They're tracking in line with where we have them projected to. Both water and sewer, you will see when you look at the revenue side of it, we have only collected about 1% of what we anticipated, but that's because the quarterly water billing goes out April 1st. So we don't actually collect any revenue until the month of April. So you'll see that reflected in next quarter's financial review. The only other thing to note on those, the salary, while it's keeping in line with where we roughly had it, there were a significant number of water main breaks, as everyone is aware of. So we do anticipate there is the potential that that line may be a little bit over budget, but as it stands right now, we don't anticipate it exceeding where we have it budgeted. Third one is the general fund. So right now, it looks like we've collected just under 50% of the revenue that we anticipated. Some of that is because some of our larger revenue sources are essentially front-loaded. We collect them in the first quarter and the second quarter. So it makes sense that we've collected 50% of what we anticipated for the year. The other item that I wanted to note is actually on the fourth page. It's in reference to Parrott Hall. The percentage number will stand out drastically to all of you. That is an in and an out. So whatever we are essentially expensing, we get reimbursed by a grant that comes in. So I don't want anybody to see that and panic that we are 241% over budget on that line. We've submitted the quarter one reimbursement to the state, and we're anticipating that coming in hopefully within the next week or two is the anticipation. But also similar to the water and sewer fund, you'll notice expenses are on track. We have 77% remaining in our expenses at the end of the first quarter. So, any questions? And
Not
you can
yet.
feel free.
It's a lot to digest.
I know it is. It's an information overload. So again, as always, feel free to reach out to the city manager, and she can reach out to me with any questions that you guys may have.
Go ahead, Counselor. Counselor Lavin, yep.
Yep. Where is sales tax running against projections?
We're actually a little bit over where we had anticipated it to be for the first quarter.
And when that occurs, where does the surplus?
It goes in the revenue line. So if we have a surplus at the end of the year, then we would roll that over into our fund balance.
Okay. And this report doesn't give you a year over year.
No.
So a deviation from last year's performance to this year's performance is, we dig it out of here or go back to the last year's budget?
It would be in last year's budget. It'll be in our, when we present the budget, but I can absolutely see if there's an additional report that we could run. This is a system-generated report, so it's relatively easy where I could kick off last year's and send it.
I'm, just because we're not accountants and things like that, the things that, to me, stand out are things that, early warnings that things are not, either are not going as well as we hoped, but also if we have surpluses, that they don't disappear into other holes without some analysis of where what it's filling up in other places. And I think a dashboard for the layman would be better than this report, at least if we could develop one.
We can look into it for the next quarter.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is a presentation of the 2025 budget forecast by our city manager and our comptroller. Tag team.
I'm just gonna stay here.
Okay.
Yes, we're gonna tag team, and I'm gonna see if I can make this actually work with all our technology. And I will bring it up over here as well. Now I just have to find my mouse up there. Look at that. We're good, Peter, thank you.
Are we being broadcast internally to the room as well? Is that why
Yes.
we're hearing an echo delay?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where the echo comes from at times. Just so everyone's aware, if this meeting room overflows because there's too many people, we do have a second site that will be going ahead and broadcasting to as well. So I will give you copies of this presentation for members of council, and they will be part of the agenda's packets later. As we begin the 2025 budget planning process, the comptroller and I are already full swing into this. And so I'm going to give an overview of how the budget is created as well as what we're looking at as we enter 2025. So, maybe, there we go. One of the things that is related to budget, so budget's really a guidebook for how you do business and why your organization exists and how we spend that money. A guide of that is the mission, vision, and values of the organization. Our team has started to look at the mission, vision, and values of multiple times. So there's not one systematic city mission, vision, and values. So we've been honing those things, and you'll get to see some of that tonight. So one of the pieces is the mission. And really what we've looked at through many different documents, is our mission is to provide efficient and responsible services to the community, allowing everyone really to enjoy the benefits of living in this city. There's a lot of benefits and great resources here. When we look at vision, we really looked at what it is we want to see in this community. It's a beautiful community. It's someplace that's prosperous. It's connected. People can get around the city. It's equitable. It provides amenities for everyone that comes here, and that it's sustainable. So this is how we start to outlay the budget. We also look at our city values and our core values. And again, these are all kinds of work in progress that we're working through right now. But these are the areas that have really fallen to the top with some of our staff members, is that we provide a safe place. We're innovative and we're looking forward. We operate with care and respect of one another and how we work together. Our employees and our community is a place of integrity and honor, and that as public servants, we are providing that service and we are stewards of the resources provided to us. Strategic priorities of council. So this is distilled from some of your work sessions, and I'm working with the facilitator to continue to distill the information. But these were some of the themes that came out in your first 2 work sessions as a council on ensuring that the infrastructure of our city supports our community, that the communication coming from the city to the residents and to each other is clear, and that everyone understands where we're coming from. Economic development, that we are investing in our city, we're bringing in others to invest in the city and help grow it, that there's partnerships between our different entities and organizations, as well as the different governments that govern the city, that we focus on our neighborhoods and improve the quality of life so people really have a place that they are proud of, and then fiscal stewardship and organizational excellence. As I said, the budget's a blueprint. Our budget guides how the city government spends money. When we look at this, we look at what activities are funded in each year and at what level. What services do we want to provide? How much do we spend in operating and capital expenses? How much do we spend for education? And that doesn't always mean school district, but school district plays into our taxpayers when we start thinking of it, but also education of the community in different ways. Sanitation, public safety, recreation, transportation, which can be our roads and our different services, and a wide range of other activities. The other piece where it's a blueprint is it guides us on how the city government pays for all of the different activities and how do we raise revenue. So there's different types of taxes, there's fees for service, there's aid from state and federal governments. How do we use all of that revenue to provide what our residents want to see? And it's all a balance. By law, our budget has to balance. It's not like you can have extra or negatives. There are ways, and we'll talk about our fund balance a little bit, but when we run surplus, when revenues are greater than our spending, or gaps are projected when our spending is expected to exceed revenues, when we present the budget to you, it has to balance. The adopted budget for the city of Geneva follows the calendar year, so it begins January 1st and ends December 31st. All of those expenses have to be in that year. And that's not common for all cities. That's why I put that there. Cities have different budget cycles. Even in New York State, we're not all on the same budget cycle, and not all municipalities are. So I'm going to speak really on the general fund budget. As you got your Q1 reports, you'll see there's 3 different reports that you got: water fund, sewer fund, and general fund. General fund is really the big basis of the budget. That is how we do most operations. Water fund is how we fund our water infrastructure, and sewer fund is our sewer infrastructure and our wastewater infrastructure. Those are 3 different accounts. I'm focused on the general fund, although the system is similar, slightly different because you don't do as many services and activities with water and sewer, but the behind the scenes is very similar. So you have different components in your budget. You have your revenue budget. That's our estimate of how much money the city government will take in during the fiscal year. There's different components in that. We collect taxes through property taxes. We receive sales tax that comes through the county that is collected as a whole, and then we have a tax sharing agreement. We generate some fees, some permit fees, some licenses. We can sell city-owned property. There is also grants that come in, there's state aid, and then there's federal government revenue that comes in from time to time. When we look at expense budgeting, that is how we fund everything that the city does. So how do we fund our services? How do we fund our employees, their pensions, debt service? So if we've taken on debt because we've done a large project and we pay over time, we have bonds and bans and we need to pay that debt off. Routine operating expenses, everything from pens and pencils and printing services to how we do the work. Our budget is our legally binding commitment to a level of appropriations for a particular fiscal year. So when this council sets the budget, and we'll go through the process and how you get to that point, that city budget binds us to providing services that are outlined, as well as making sure that we're being stewards of those resources. The other component in the general budget is the capital budget. Capital budget is a budget within the general budget, and it funds physical infrastructure. It's used either in support of government operations, spaces, remodeling, buying buildings, things like that, or for general public use, roads, bridges, parks, can also be spaces as well. Included in the capital budget, individual projects must have a value of at least $50,000 is where we like to see capital, because that's where you're bonding and banning. You're going out because you know that thing is going to last at least 5 years, and it's going to cost a larger, I think 50,000 is probably low side. It's going to cost a larger amount. So in the budget, what's the role of city council? So city council's responsibility related to budget is very broad. That includes negotiation on budget, so you'll have opportunities to talk to each other about what's in the budget, what you'd like to see in the budget, reviewing the budget, modifying the budget, and then you also have the oversight of city revenues. Discussing with that, you have the biggest piece for city council is you set the property taxes for the city. The council will receive, as far as process, you'll receive the city manager's preliminary budget. You'll then review and respond to the proposed budget, have work sessions, discuss it, negotiate among yourselves, council members, and the mayor, and then finally you will adopt a budget, a water fund, and a sewer fund. And then throughout the year, if things are over a certain threshold, usually around $10,000, we'll bring it to you to say, we're doing a modification on this, and you'll vote through that. And the role of me as the city manager and my team, I can't take this role only as myself, although it says my name here because ultimately the responsibility lies with me. I'm responsible for managing the city operations, managing the delivery of the services, the programs, all of the ideas that you guys provide. It's an executive role in city management, and it includes developing the annual proposal as well as implementing the adopted budget, ensuring that if we say we're going to do something, we find a way to do it, or if we don't, you as a council are informed, and in turn, your constituents are informed. The city manager works with the city departments to assess their spending and revenue needs. We develop the budget estimates for the upcoming fiscal year. We then issue the preliminary budget and implement your adopted budget. And then throughout the year, we propose budget amendments and modifications. So the budget season. The budget season is our opportunity to rethink how the city allocates its financial resources each year to achieve the goals and objectives as a city. It's a little different than your personal budget, because sometimes in your personal budget you may want to do an additional project or something, and you may shift it a little, but you know usually about where you're going to be. A city budget, if we decided to do a large project or change things, we may change how we do services, and so we're going to estimate it differently. So there's a little difference there. In the budget process for any given year, there'll be more requests to fund programs and services than there is money. I've never seen that change. There will be more ideas, more things to do. I know we've had discussions about infrastructure, and it was asked of me recently, how many millions would it cost to replace our entire sewer system? We're not talking millions at that point. We're talking billions, potentially. That's a much larger request, but probably for some people that experience challenges with that, that's a really considerable request that they would like us to think about. So those are a piece of that. As a result of this, policymakers and the departments really do face a wide variety of choices and how they allocate the resources and how they go back to that priority-based budgeting and how we hear from the community to get there. So 2025, Well, we're kicking it off today. We're going to start kicking it off next week with our departments, talking about some of their indicators. The comptroller and I have just met with a majority of our departments to go through their Q1 financials and start talking about what's working, what's not working, how are they moving on things. One of the things that is not necessarily a result of the pandemic, but we're seeing because of the pandemic, we're still having a hard time getting certain things in. So we might think we're purchasing something and it's not coming. I know we have a fire truck coming that was purchased 3 years ago or expected 3 years ago. We're thinking it's coming this year, and I think there's some dates planned, but until it's here, we don't know how that's going to work out. So we go through all of that. June 17th, departmental budgets are due to the comptroller, and she'll begin the first review, and her and I will meet on that. We'll then have discussions with our departments. We'll modify the department budgets because, as said, there will be more requests than we can handle. From there, on September 16th, I will present to you the city manager's budget, and you'll get pieces of all of those conversations of what the departments requested and what was put into that budget. And then we have a public hearing on the budget where we can hear from community members on it, go into workshops of council, and then you have to adopt the budget by October 31st. But when we go on the themes of Wednesday for budget work session meetings, October 30th is a Wednesday. So when we get into our budget, where does our money come from? These are buckets that we have grouped together. So 43% of our budget in 2024 came from property taxes. Fines, fees, charges took on about 11%. Sales tax, 21.4%. Other taxes, 6.9%. State and federal resources, 6%. Sale of city property, 1%. And interest and earnings was at 0.1%, so you don't even see anything on there other than the zero. So that's where our money is coming from at this point. And where does our money go? So public safety services take up they take out 34% of our budget. 25% goes to health, sanitation, and environmental protection. 21% goes to our debt. 7% administration. 8% pension and fringe benefits, and then 5% for recreation and community services. Debt. That was a large piece of the pie, so I wanted to make sure you understand the debt. The city generates long-term debt by issuing bonds to fund the building, maintenance, and improvement of the city's infrastructure. When I talk about our budget, we're talking $20 million. Yes, $20 million. However, a large project, if we were building a new building. I'm not going to name a department building because then they'll think they're getting a new building. But if we were building a new building, you're talking 18 million, 10 million at least, probably 18, 19 million. We can't go out to the taxpayers and say, hey, this year we want you to provide this much more money. Instead, we go to bonds and we have debt. Every year, a portion of our expense budget must be used to fund debt service. So we have to pay the interest and principal on a debt. Similar to anyone that's taken out a mortgage or a car loan or anything, you pay what you owe on that. The more the city spends on debt service, the less funds there are available for other city programs. We will make some recommendations throughout the budget process. Often we'll use general fund to pay off debt because general fund is not a savings account, but a lot of people equate it to that. It's money that has gone from reserves that will help pay down some of that debt versus taking money from taxpayers to do that. So what is our fund balance? Our fund balance is the total accumulation of operating surpluses and deficits since the beginning of our existence as a city. Fund balance funds are not recurring, so once they're in there, that's a savings. We should never take taxpayer dollars with saying, I hope we can put more money into our fund balance. That's not a goal or we should ever have. As a city, though, we must maintain a fund balance reserve that is 12% to 15% of the total budget. That's something that has been determined by this organization. I've seen anything from really now 12 to 20% is more common. Again, post-pandemic, we realized you want to have a little more in that fund balance because you don't know when something's going to happen, and that's where the 20% number has started to come in. 2024 fund balance, again, this is total accumulation of operating surpluses and deficits, so I don't have a 2025 fund balance because I don't have a 2025 budget yet. is at 23% or 4.5 million of the total budget. Tax levy. This is another fun topic that gets discussed often. So a property tax levy is the total amount of money to be raised by property tax to provide the cost of providing public services. So the levy, whether higher or lower than the preceding year, is determined by the budget-making authority or jurisdiction. So while assessments came out, the assessor does not set the tax levy. The assessor looks at our total taxable assessed value, which you'll see on the next page, and determines how much the city properties are worth. From there, the budget is created, and then we take the total city expenses minus the city revenues, minus any fund balance funds we're going to use, and divide it to get your tax levy. So, how do you get the taxable assessed value? New York state law requires all properties in the municipality to be assessed at a uniform percentage of the market value each year. This means that all taxable properties in the cities must be assessed at that market value. With that caveat, I know we have properties that are nonprofits. Those are backed out from your total assessed value, or taxable assessed value. Sorry. And then you go to tax rate. So local governments determine that tax rate by dividing the total amount of money that has to be raised from property tax, the tax levy, by the taxable assessed value of real property in the municipality. So our tax rate in 2024 was $17.25. Often you'll see this by hundreds of thousands, and there's a rate there based on median home value is how we do that. For 2025, we'll look at the median home value and provide what the median home would be taxed. So our tax rates. This is the historic tax rates in the city of Geneva. In 2016, we were over $17.75, and then we kind of stayed there and then dropped down to 2021 when we hit below $16.25. Oops, sorry about that. And then we increased back to where we are now, which is at $17.25.
Pause that slide, please. I want to make a public note that the 2019 to 2020 threshold was our last reassessment.
It was 21.
It was 21.
It was done one in 21.
So it started paying in 2021?
When you
2020.
see it go down, it's gotta be a
So that
reassessment.
2021 was a reassessment?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure it was in 2020.
Well, they may have done it in 2020, but they're using, up
Can you,
here,
can you correct?
it's taxable.
I'll look at it
year
to see what year.
assessment
So probably, my assumption was 2020 would have been when you did the assessment. So like right now, you're doing the assessment, so you go through it, and you'll see it in 2021.
So it
But
won't
I don't know that for sure.
affect the tax, so if you do the reassessment in 2020, you don't use that tax roll that you established until 2021.
There it is, that's right. So 2020 was the reassessment, but 2021 was the
2021 was-
realization of that reassessment.
Correct.
So they did the roll for 2021.
There it is.
So,
But that's,
Taxes are right back.
that's not the levy.
That's correct.
No,
no, this is
That's
your
the
tax
tax
rate.
rate.
Right, but if you track the levy,
Yeah.
you'd see that actually, it may be a very different charge.
Yeah, so the,
Not much different.
sorry.
I would say,
Significant.
before we dive into tax levy and tax rate, I will show you how they play with each other in just a moment.
Yeah.
So as I look at 24 to 2025 and our initial conversations, here's some revenue changes. Going back to revenue budget, expense budgets. Revenue, we do know that state aid will increase. It'll increase roughly $200,000. It's a nice increase for us. It hasn't increased in about 15 years, so we'll take $200,000 over 15 years. Sales tax, right now we're projecting it to remain constant. As we get closer to the budget time, we'll have more indicators. We'll be more in the, really by the time we get to you, we'll be in September, so we'll know what the first 2 quarters of the year look like. We'll also know when we talk about sales tax, you're talking about not just national, but what's happening in the globe and how people are spending, what consumer confidence is, all of those pieces. Right now, we're projecting it, though, to remain constant. We do hope to have slight growth in interest and earnings and have started to monitor that. And we also assume there might be slight growth in fees, fines, and charges. There were some fees and fines that we hadn't updated in quite a while, and this council and the previous council has done some work to take fines and fees out of ordinance language, so it gets updated on an annual basis versus some of them were 10 to 15 to 20 years old, and we never took that into consideration. Expense changes. Increase in labor costs. We have 4 contracts that are currently in negotiations, 2 agreed upon, but they have increases, so we know that those increases will occur. We also know that overall supply costs have increased. The cost of doing business has gone up. As mentioned, we would like to use some of the reserve fund money to pay some of our debt, which would change some of that. Investment in infrastructure. We have a storm task force that will be making recommendations to you on some of that infrastructure, as well as other people looking at how do we do that and how do we invest in long term. And then we know already that pension and fringe benefits, as much as I would like to see both of those things go down, they are out of our control, and very rarely does health insurance costs or other things go down. Hopefully they'll continue to stabilize. Fixed costs, and I use the term fixed a little lightly on some of these. So we already know that we have to pay our debt. They don't allow us to just say, can we take a holiday and not pay debt for a while? We also know that there's mandatory equipment maintenance and replacement. If something's unsafe and our employees need that to do their jobs, we have to go ahead and do that. We do know that we also have 2 contract obligations, so we have at least 2 of our 6 unions that have contracts, but that's not what contractual obligations are that we're talking about here. The contractual obligations that I'm talking about here is more along things like we have a contract with the state to provide something, so we're going to do a grant program, something like that. We're already obligated to continue to maintain that. Or we have a contract with someone that's a 3-year contract or a franchise agreement where we have multiple years. The other fixed cost is employee wages and fringe benefits. You can change that fixed cost by eliminating positions, programs, departments, things like that. If you want to realize the same employment, you wouldn't look at that in that way. So if I were to look at all of these as fixed costs, we maintain the same amount of employees, hopefully the same amount of services, with very minimal growth. We're looking at just on the cost side, about $17.7 million for your budget. That does not include anything that's not a fixed cost. So back to that previous slides where you talk about pens and pencils and all the other services, some service contracts with others, those would go away if we said, let's set the budget at $17.7 million. So sample budget scenario. This is not, and I will say multiple times, this is a sample budget scenario. This is not my recommended budget. I'm not coming to you tonight and saying, hey, we've already done this work. But a sample budget scenario. If we said the estimated expense budget grew by $2 million, I'm using round numbers as well. This year, our budget is about $20 million. Say we said, we're going to do a couple extra projects. We're going to have minimal staffing growth. We know material cost is going to increase, but we also know we need some capital investments. Maybe we need some fleet cars added, and we know wages and other things. So we're going to increase the budget by $2 million. We estimate the revenue is going to grow also by $500,000. We already know that $200,000 more is coming from the state, and we have a couple other things in the hopper. Again, only estimated. It's a scenario. This is not real life. So we say the estimated revenues grow by $500,000. So we take the 22 million and we subtract the 11.5 million to give us our tax levy. So we need to raise $10.5 million, which is our tax levy. Tax levy comes from property taxes. So we need $10.5 million of property taxes. We then go over to estimated assessed value. We're going to estimate, and you all the property owners received a 40% estimation of property value growth. Again, I'm using round numbers just for easy math. I know it's not super easy math, but it was super easy for me to put this together. So assessed value 40% over 2024. Your new taxable assessed value of the city is $685 million. So then, to get your tax rate, you take your $685 million taxable assessed value, you divide it by your property tax levy, and the rate becomes $15.32. So your tax rate is $15.32. That's $1.93 reduction in your tax rate. That doesn't necessarily mean all of your bills go up or down because, again, it depends on what your property is valued at, and some properties are now valued more, some are now valued less, but the 1532 becomes the new tax rate.
Can I just
Yep.
ask a question? Because this is long. I'm giving you a break here. Maybe get a
Yes,
drink.
please.
So here's my question about not-for-profit property and how it's assessed, because it's not an unreasonable thing to say Geneva is loaded with not-for-profit property more so than other communities. In contrast, we have a lot, and it's a substantial amount. So is not-for-profit property assessment subtracted from the actual total property assessment? And I think that's important to know. So suppose myself and this counselor each have $100,000 homes.
Right.
They're assessed for $100,000 homes. So that's a $200,000 total assessment.
Right.
But then my friend starts an LLC that's a not-for-profit and sells his house into his LLC that's no longer taxable. Does that $100,000 go off of the assessment, or does this person literally just get his taxes cut in half?
So I guess my biggest thing is it depends.
No.
And the assessor is here, so not our assessor, but someone with assessment experience. So it depends on, just because something is a nonprofit does not mean that there's no tax on that property.
But you said not-for-profits come off the assessment, but I think what you mean is they're just not taxed.
Some of their parcels may not be taxed.
Yeah,
Not taxed, but the assessment still adds their value as the assessed property, correct?
you have to think,
No.
there's assessed property and there's taxable assessed property.
Right.
Right.
All those nonprofits that are used for public good are in that assessment group.
Or in the total
but they're
assessed.
not in the taxable group.
Right.
So when we're doing these tax rates, you're using only the taxable assessed.
Right.
So if it goes to a nonprofit and the nonprofit has the exemption from the state that says they don't have to pay, they're still in your total assessment, but they're not in the taxable side.
So how does that play out into my hypothetical? You
Well,
have a
First of
$100,000
all,
house.
the
I
guy
have-
has to move out.
Well, no, I understand. It does,
But,
but the property is still assessed.
It's still assessed, it still would be 100. But if he's using it for a truly nonprofit thing,
Sure,
he turned it into a hospice house.
sure.
Okay, that's gonna come off the roll, off the taxable part of the roll.
Taxable assessed value.
But not the total
Not the
assessed
total
value.
assessment.
So the tax rate for that single house will then go up.
Not necessarily.
No. And
How is it
nonprofits
not-
are
yes
assessed
or
at
no?
different on the use of the property.
Well, I would like this broken down eventually, because I think this taxpayer needs to know how the increase or the calculus of not-for-profits affects their actual individual tax burden, because it's not really cut and dry.
It's
And
exemptions.
I know, I understand, but I think some sort of digestible way to understand it helps, because when you ask a average person what should be a cut or dry yes or no question, you're like, well, not necessarily. That's really just either I don't know or it's too complicated for even me to explain.
Well, there's
Pretty
multiple
complicated.
factors that go into it, so it's not just a straightforward two scenario,
Yeah.
2 points that you're
Sure.
mentioning.
And
Well,
I'm actually going to turn this question to David, who he and the assessor met. Again, David is not our assessor, but they just had a conversation about how we do this. So I'm going to let him talk a little bit about it. But I think the biggest takeaway is it depends on the scenario of what the property is used for. So go ahead, David.
Yeah, so I think there's two parts of this, and one is that just because something is owned by a nonprofit doesn't make it exempt from taxes. So if it's owned by a nonprofit, but it's not being used for the nonprofit purpose, for example, if a nonprofit owns a strip mall but rents out to businesses, that's not tax exempt. Even though it's owned by a nonprofit, it's not being used for the nonprofit purpose.
No, okay, just to break it up, that was never my question. My question is about the assessment. At what point does the assessment not get counted because they're not paying taxes?
So what happens is it's not a part of the tax base if it's a non-taxable property. So just like if a building was demolished, it's the same difference. If it becomes untaxable, it's removed from the tax base. It's not a part of that 6.85 million
Thank you.
it's
That's
separate.
really it.
Yeah.
That's really it, because that's what generates our tax rate, is that number.
It's all about exemptions.
Yeah.
I'd love to complicate it one more.
Oh, gosh, don't.
And I know
Because
Counselor
I'm
Lavin
trying to
has a
just
question.
understand.
But just, Counselor Peeler, just for the benefit of the discussion, if you're looking at the 685 on the screen, that is taxable property.
Taxable
But there's a larger number that is the total assessed value that is good for us to use in the Ontario County sales tax formula.
Yeah.
I understand that too, yep.
So that is beneficial for us
Yes.
when we go to the Ontario County sales tax. Counselor Lavin, I think you had a question?
I have a compliment, question and a suggestion. The compliment is, I've always, in the years since I've been back from overseas, I've always found the budget scenario process here to be pretty opaque. Something pops up in September and they have 30 days to figure it out. The questions that are asked by the council usually total to about $150,000 or $200,000 of money, and it's so late in the process that I don't think we can really engage in it. I really compliment you on starting the discussion earlier. I have the same question that I had for the CFO, though, is we also, what's missing here is that our tax rate is 30%, give or take, higher than Ithaca's, 36% higher than Canandaigua's. And I wonder if we couldn't have a dashboard of some, the cities we consider to be benchmarks for the way they're operating, the way they're spending compared to us. So we can focus in on how did we get to this point where we're so out of line with other communities. The tax exemption, people bring it up all the time. Ithaca's is bigger tax exempt properties than ours as a percentage. And I think that when we get this scenario that you put out here would have about 2.5 million more on the levy next year than this year for the overall levy.
It's 2 million.
2 million, right. So that is the money taken from the taxpayer. And while the mathematics.
Oh, it's not 2 million from the tax levy. Just to be clear, we added 2 million to the expense budget.
Right.
We estimated a revenue growth of 500,000, and so it's actually a
It's about
1.5 million.
1 point, but more, we're
For
projecting
levy.
here, and having the word reduction up there is not it's
Well-
not really a reduction of the levy.
No,
But-
Reduction of the tax rate.
Yes,
Right,
that's
right,
what we're
and the
tax
rate-
rate.
What the people living on South Main Street and in all over town are looking at is the burden of what they're paying on the houses. So
Correct.
I think that a benchmark for other cities, looking at things like our indebtedness, 20% is pretty high. How does that compare to other cities? At the time when we're thinking of putting $1.5 million onto it for a marina downtown, and
This doesn't have anything to do with capital projects.
no, but it has to do with indebtedness. To have a comparison between cities, that benchmark
So-
cities, Corning, Ithaca, Geneva, Town of Geneva, that would be up to you, and I know there's some work in doing that.
So we already do that, and you'll get that as part of the budget presentation. We started that last year. I will say, though, the city of Ithaca is very different than the city of Geneva,
Right.
just in size of budget and resources in that city. And so I only use that because it often comes up because I came from Tompkins County. So I just put it out there for that purpose, but I wouldn't use that.
I think
We
that
use
should be up to you.
Corning, Hornell, we use quite a few cities based on population size, as well as based on total tax burden. The other difference, though, is when we look at that, you have to look at their taxable assessed value, which is far greater than our taxable assessed value. And so when you look at that, and you could argue on this as what is the buying power of different places. So a property taxable assessed value here for 130,000, and one of those other locations may be 270,000. That means that there's more growth and their tax rate is lower because when you do this reduction. We will definitely provide those so you can see how that all plays out. The other thing we look at is how much the budget is per person, because you also have to look at who's paying the tax and all of those different points. So we will provide that. This is just also a sample budget. I cannot say that enough. We are not proposing tonight that we want to increase by 2 million and we're getting 500,000 in revenues. This is a sample budget so people can start to understand that the tax levy and the tax rates are both important things. Tax levy is when you take all of your budget, you have to then look at what you can't pay for, and then is that burden something you want to put on the property owners? If that is the burden you want to put on the property owners to maintain certain things, then that's what you have to do, and we can have bigger conversations. When you look at this, as I said, our estimate right now to maintain fixed costs is a budget of about 17.7 million. That does not maintain operations, and your fixed costs would probably change because that only gives you, if we were to use current numbers, that only gives you, our budget's 20 million. If 17.7 is that,
19.5.
it's 19, it's not quite 20 million, you're
Does-
right,
does
I
it-
rounded,
Does the 20 include your indebtedness?
correct.
It does.
Yep.
So if
Yeah,
you were to
debt-
look at that, there are
debt
some
payments.
other levers I would look at, but ultimately, you would be giving us about 1.2 million to provide all of the services and all of those other things. So infrastructure improvements, vehicles, things like that would fall out of that. So that's just a piece. With that, though, I am going to take us to the next slide, which is our budget goals as we've started to prepare this and allow the opportunity for council to think a little more about this. Our budget goals are really smart spending. We want to ensure our spending aligns with priorities set by council and things that departments have already started to work on. As council shifts, obviously priorities will shift as well. That's where we're going to utilize some of the work that you did in the retreat, and I shared at the beginning, as well as other pieces of that. Wise investments. We need to invest in long-term returns. And it's not uncommon for some staff to say, well, we'll just fix that. We've already fixed it 9 times, but it's cheaper to fix it like this than to invest in it for the future. We have to be smart with how we invest in things. We can't kind of Band-Aid some things that maybe have been Band-Aided in the past. Sometimes that's more costly, but the long-term impact. On that, though, we have to measure that. We have to measure the impact. We need to make sure that our resources are going deep. Stabilizing revenues. We need to continue to diversify revenues and monitor our revenue sources. So it's great that the state aid is increasing, but we shouldn't depend on that. If it took 15 years to get $200,000, I'm not going to count that as a big victory because we probably need more than $200,000 in the next 15 years. So how do we diversify our revenues and monitor those sources? And then one of the pieces that we would like to look at is really getting that tax rate down. It is possible, I think, to continue to do many of our services and also drive that tax rate down. And I will totally blame the comptroller, but she was the one that said we definitely can hit it lower than we have in 10 years. And so part of that is because of the assessed value and some of those shifts. But what we don't want to do is just keep the tax rate the same and say, look at this windfall of cash, now we can do additional projects. It has to be back to that smart spending. When we meet with departments, the direction we will give them will be based off of some of the discussion that I hope you'll have briefly tonight. I know I've taken a lot of your time, but I think it's important because this is how you guide what you do as a council and guide me. We will be asking them to share how their requests show all of these areas. How do we know that if we are doing these things, we are really smart spending? We're using the wise investment, we're stabilizing revenues, and it's keeping in mind that we don't want to increase the tax rate. So with that, that is really the close of my presentation, unless there are additional questions or directions that we want to ensure.
The question I didn't get to when I listed the question was, and maybe this is a question for you and Dave, is where do you see our tax rate as an impediment to economic development and the competitiveness with other communities around us? Is this not, as government professionals, are you feeling like you're carrying a big bag of sand on the back, or are you saying our houses are cheaper so we don't care how much we're charging for them?
Do you want to start?
Sure.
I'll take a drink while you do that.
Yeah. So when I've looked at how we compare to other places, there's different metrics, right? We have a very high rate, and that's largely because we have very low values and very comparable expenses. So the city of Geneva costs each person in Geneva a pretty similar amount to what other city governments of similar size cost their residents. In other cities that are comparable, houses are worth a lot more. So that allows the rate to be lower for a similar expense. Our expenses are actually on the low side when we take it out per household compared to similar places, compared to some place like Canandaigua. Our expenses per household are low. The rate is high. So what does that mean? That means if you have the most expensive property in Geneva, you may be paying, or if you want to make the most expensive property in Geneva, that may be an expensive proposition. On the low end, it's less of an issue. When I've compared, what the total taxes would be between different locations, it's not a big impediment, but it is difficult for new construction. I think as the success of the city has resulted in increased values, we see that opportunity for the rate to go down and for it to normalize a bit. I think that because values are so low, we're an attractive place to invest. You can get in a way that you wouldn't in another place. You can buy a building in Geneva. A lot of people can who would not be able to buy, definitely would never be able to buy in Ithaca. And other places are an impediment.
And I don't really have much to add to that. I think that's really what I've seen is it comes back to buying power and how they're utilizing it.
So my direction is, thank you. That last slide you brought up with the focus of, the goals for 2025 is admirable, and I appreciate it. We're here to be efficient. We're here to be smart with the taxpayers' money. We're here to create economic development, and I know everybody, including myself, is concerned about the assessment and how it's going to ultimately impact the final number that I'm going to have to pay in 2025. And I like when we're talking about the tax rate and how we're going to address that. So thank you very much for your efforts or your goals for 2025.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on. Next is our Foundry update by our new city clerk.
We have a Geneva Foundry offsite remediation monthly summary. The remedial design update states, in anticipation of remedial construction during May and June 2024, NYSDEC's engineering contractor completed the remedial design for the State Street staging area based on results of soil samples collected in late November 2023. This is the final remedial design and final property to be cleared up as part of the NYSDEC's offsite remediation project. For remedial construction, small excavation areas at properties between Geneva and Genesee Streets were completed and restored, including areas of public sidewalk on Geneva Street. Remediation of 2 additional residential parcels, located on Tillman Street and Clinton Street is substantially complete. Replacement plants and trees will be planted at properties that were remediated in 2023 and 2024. Completion of the replacement plantings is expected by the end of June. As noted above, remediation of the State Street parcel owned by the city and used as a project staging area will begin in May 2024. Demobilization from the project staging areas on Lehigh Street, Geneva Street, and State Street will be completed in the summer of 2024.
Thank you. And I don't see our county supervisor present, so we're going to move past that and move on to consideration of meeting minutes. We have April 3rd, April 4th, and April 15th, and I need a motion for approval. I have Counselor. Ready? Okay. I don't know if you caught that.
I did.
Okay. I have Counselor Gilat, seconded by Counselor Petropoulos.
Thank you.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan,
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Counselor Levin,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Just to be clear, this is item 9 on the agenda,
Yes.
meeting
It
minutes?
is.
Yes.
Well, I wasn't at one of the meetings, so, I mean, I for this, but if we're gonna lock them all up, aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Aye.
Counselor Morocco,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino,
Aye.
and Counselor Gelati.
Aye.
Okay, next is public comment. First on my list is Ann Harvey Hoyt. And just so the public knows, we're limiting public comment to 3 minutes, that's standard.
Thank you. You can understand me. Okay. I'm here to. Whoops.
Takes a little getting used to it.
Yeah. I'm here to report my monthly report about the Green Committee. So we held our Mission Zero event April 22nd at the ice rink, and I think it was a pretty big success. We had close to 500 individual people attend. That's not counting the people who tabled. We had about 30 people, organizations, groups, companies, craft people tabling. I personally gave away more than 24 composting bins free, thanks to a USDA grant. We had a rain barrel workshop that had more than a dozen attendees. We had a whole bunch of 7, I think, electric vehicles that people could check out. The Shade Tree Committee gave away 100 free trees to city residents. We had a fix-it clinic, children's activities. It was really great. It just keeps getting better every year. Okay, so that's old news. I'm here to remind you that on the 28th of May, Emily DeBolt, the director of Seneca Lake Pure Waters, is doing a rain garden workshop at the library. So this is my second or third time coming before council to ask that you amend the code which prohibits shrubs or wildflowers within 25 feet of any street. So we're, on the one hand, encouraging rain gardens, but we're also encouraging people to violate this code, which many, many, many properties in the city are in violation of. So I would appreciate it if you would amend the code so that this is not a problem. On Tuesday, May 14th, Emily is also doing, on behalf of Seneca Lake Pure Waters, a tour of the lakefront park, and she's pointing out the rain swales there and the planting plan. So I have a question for council, though. What is council's intention with this park? I ask that because yesterday or the day before, the largest rain swale at the lakefront park was whatever you call it, everything was mowed down. And that is what the city did because there's nobody taking care of these properties. You have one person with a small crew that you've agreed to pay 3 hours a week. And that's not, you're not actually paying them. Bid is, you're paying bid to do that. So you have, in the 10 years that you've had this park, you have never appointed or set aside any money for a trained horticulturalist to take care of the park. And instead you have thankfully designated that task to bid at a great savings to the city. So you did the same thing with downtown, which you felt it was important to maintain downtown, to make it look good. You've done that through bid. So why have you not done that for the park? So I suggest that the city manager have a conversation with Jill Byington, because I think you will learn that she's not asking for a lot to work at the lakefront park. She's not asking for 40 hours or even probably 20 hours. But you need to get that park under control. You've got a bunch of events coming up this summer. You've got a collaboration with Cornell to do a pollinator event day at the lakefront park. It's the most visited visitor center in New York State. So you need to step up and take some responsibility, just as you stepped up and took responsibility for the downtown plantings by letting BID take care of it. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Next, we have Pat Schiller.
Just to add on what was said, I hope you all took advantage of all the things that were happening in Geneva this past weekend. At the rec center, at the Dove Building, and then for the 12th year in a row, Seneca 7, 299 teams, 7 people on each team with probably friends and family. And if that's not the best way to show off Geneva, I don't know what it is. And so many of the volunteers just love doing what they're doing. And thanks to Ian and Jackie and Jeff for getting things organized. And I feel it really ran smoothly on Sunday. That's why I'm here. But as I was sitting, today is May 1st. Memorial Day is coming. Most Genevans do not know that in Rochester, at the Vietnam Memorial Park, which is right by Highland Park, there is a Vietnam memorial. Every person from Geneva that died in Vietnam has an individual ballard there. There are over 200 from the 5-county area. On Memorial Day at 1 o'clock, they have a special service. It's so worth going. And I think that most Genevans don't know it's there. As I say, over 200 vets, they name them off one by one. They have the buglers. And, you know, people our age are getting older. And if you have friends that died in Vietnam, please go and see it. It's so worthwhile. I've had people say that even have been to the wall, that the one in Rochester is just very moving, spectacular. So please take advantage. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Catherine Price.
So I'd like to hand you some plaques to take a look at. I'll pick them up in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to start with, good evening. Thank you for listening to me. I'm trying to be here more often to give you more of an update on what we're doing here at BID. So Q1 in downtown, it's always a little bit quiet. Everything kind of came together as it should, and now we're gearing up for Q2, and again, it's the first day of May. So by Memorial Day, we will have out these plaques, part of the plaque project that we put together with LDC and IDA last year. They were really able to help us front load with a graphic designer, horticulturist who helped us with the plants, figuring out which plant to use, how to get to each of the plants. When you scan the QR code, it links back to our website, which gives you information on green infrastructure, bioswales, what's a bioswale, the different plants, and additional information on each of the different plants so that you can do a walking tour around Geneva for all the new landscaping beds throughout that have come from the DRI project. The plan now, we again have horticulturists that we've been working with. Daisy Hoyt has done a plan for us for Seneca Street, so that we're going to pull some of the native plants from that are in the lakefront and in the DRI project into Seneca Street, so that it's going to feel a little bit more cohesive through all of downtown. And because we were able to front load so many, because the IDA and LDC really helped us with these plaques last year, we have templates ready, and we're working with Ann and Jill Byington, who is our master gardener and horticulturist that we work with, to do those plaques for the lakefront as well. So they will be part of the website and part of the tour. And the other nice thing about that is it links back to our website, which gives you tours of downtown and lets people know what else there is to do if they're just standing in front of the Welcome Center. So part of our mission at the BID. The other project that we're working on right now, again, to complete before Memorial Day, are the light poles. We've been working closely with DPW on this. At this point, all of the old brackets for things that are not in use are down from the light poles. New brackets are going up to hang all of the Hometown Heroes banners and the additional new large hanging baskets that we purchased, the eco-friendly hanging baskets. The new hanging baskets that you'll see up are the larger black ones. They have 4-gallon reservoirs, so they only need to be watered once or twice a week, so it saves on water and it saves on labor. So, and the last year, some of those dripped 6 feet down from the basket, so it definitely makes downtown beautiful. The other project that we're working with the city on are the new American flags. There are 50 poles for American flags. We have 22 at the city right now. We are ordering 23. We were ordering the balance of 27. We are. Does that mean I'm done?
It means you can wrap it up.
Okay.
We're not hard. We don't have a hard line.
Okay.
Catherine, but
So the American Legion is helping us raise money for this so that we don't get the same cheap American flags that our predecessors purchased. They are standard size and of a better quality, like what you see behind you. All the flowers will be dropped off and delivered and in place by Memorial Day. And I think that's it. So, and again, if I'm happy to sit down and talk with the city about Jill Byington and how we can help the city with additional man hours at the lakefront. We just have to figure out the budget. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
thank you. And your plaques are there. Next is Michael Monaco.
Hi, I'm here to talk about your short-term rental thing you're doing tonight. I watched your meeting Monday night you guys had, and you pulled parking out of the thing and turned it into single residential home parking. I have 13, 14 police reports from this summer of regular home parking in the driveway with the Airbnb next to me. They trespassed on my property. Set off, a lot of people think, oh, that's not a big deal. When your security system gets set off at 2 a.m. and you gotta get up at 4, it's a big deal, and it happens all the time. The parking ordinance has to get put back. Mr. Mayor, in your own words, if regular B&Bs have to have parking regulations, Why shouldn't Airbnbs? They were your words, and now it's pulled out of the ordinance. It needs to get put back in. It needs to be done. As far as in the meeting, someone said that it's a lot of extra work for the staff. That's why you took it out. Well, the staff will have to get to work until they catch up on the number of them that are here. It's not that hard. Even when they do the regular inspection, they go in and count the bedrooms, count the parking spots. The city has a ordinance for what a parking spot is. And it's a parking spot that's 9 by 18 with direct access to the street. It's not that hard. If the house has one parking spot that meets that criteria, then it's a 1-bedroom Airbnb, not a 4. Because a 4-bedroom Airbnb is 4 couples, 4 cars, and my driveway full. Not to mention the street where company comes to visit you, that's where they try to park, and they can't, especially on North Main Street. Because you know North Main Street, it's always full. There's never. That has to get added back into this ordinance before you vote on it. I know this is the first reading and you do have time to change it. And that's the most important part of the whole ordinance. You guys argued about the fines and the fees and the things. Well, it's simple. What it costs, they have to pay. They're the one, your numbers, they made $2.2 million in Geneva last year. If they have to pay for inspections and things, let them pay. Everybody else has to pay. I mean, the city has ordinance for funeral home parking. Every business in the city of Geneva has ordinance. This one doesn't need any, it's just a single family rental. That's wrong. It's not right, and it's not right for the people. Have any of you knocked on the doors to people who live next door to one and asked them what they think in their opinion? Any of you in your boards? Anybody? You have? Mm-hmm. Yes, I know you have. You talked about it. And you said you didn't agree with them, but you were listening to them. I remember. And I can't argue with that because they put you there. But go do that and see what they say about it. See what their biggest complaint is. Parking. There's no place to park. They park everywhere. And it's not like a rental. A rental is a family. If they're there for a year, the people come, they're there, they stay there, you talk to them, you become friends. These are new people every 3 days. Every 3 days, and they don't care. They don't care if they throw trash in the street. They don't care if they park on your lawn. They don't care if they park in front of your boat. They're going to be there for 3 days. What are you going to do to them? They're going to leave. We had a group bombed my wife's business with 1-star reviews because we called the cops on them because they were drunk in the front lawn. One of them fell over the railing of the front porch. Okay? And they bombed her thing and gave her a bunch of 1-star reviews. It took her 3 weeks to get them off to prove that they were fake. That's because that's what kind of people rent these places. They don't want to rent a hotel because they have rules in a hotel. Hotels have security. They can't do what they want. They rent them places because they think they can do whatever they want, to whenever they want, whenever they feel like it. And it's just not right. You guys got to tighten it up. You got to put the parking rules in, and you got to get it done. Summer's coming. I'm just not going to be the only one in the city of Geneva that's going to suffer because they have one of these next to them this year. Summer's going to be here. It's going to start all over again. And you guys got to fix it. You guys got to get it right. Got to take care of people. I've been here for my whole life I've been here. I've owned my own house here for over 25 years. Fix it. Fix it for the people of the city.
Thank you.
If they can't be an Airbnb, then they'll go back to single-family rentals. It'll become a city again. It'll become homes, not an apartment complex for whoever feels like coming for the Garlic Festival. That won't fix the city. People living here fixes the city because they're here 365 days a year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Greg Cromer.
Good evening. My name is Greg Cromer. I'm an aerial photographer. My company's called America from the Sky. I've been on a quest to photograph every community in New York from an airplane. And I'd just like to show you the one I took here on a pretty September day. I'll flip it around here in a second.
Oh, there's my house.
There we go.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
So who's in the
Solar panels, you can see it right there, that's my house.
I always like to show these to council, see if there may be any interest in a copy for your walls. Someone the other day called me an aerial historian. I'm like, I'm going to steal that. There was a gentleman in 1890-something that hand drew a lot of these maps. His name was R.L. Burley. There's one in Pennsylvania named T.M. Fowler. So I'm trying to follow in their footsteps using the technology of today. He came to town with a hand sketch pad and had to draw every building in the town.
That's really nice. What's the, you took digital photography?
Yes.
What's the maximum pixel depth of the RAW that you took with that?
This one was with the 22 megapixel camera.
So is this a sales pitch? Do you want us to buy one of these? Is that what this is?
It's the biggest game of pay it forward I've ever played. If you buy one, you get to fly again and shoot the next town.
Do we have Fowler work here in the city? That TF Fowler?
TM Fowler? Did a lot in Pennsylvania. R.L. Burley did New York.
We do have some.
Okay, I've heard that name before.
It's downstairs.
Okay.
There's one.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Just the price is this size is 20 by 28 and is 195 with the frame. I have them from 16 by 20 for 95 framed up to 27 by 40.
I will take a picture of this and distribute to council.
You photoshopped the Seneca Lake monster in that lake, and you got my. I'll buy you one. Yeah.
Very little Photoshop. Just make sure the trees and the horizon's straight. Anyway, the trick is find a good day.
Here.
Okay. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. That's very interesting.
Thank you very much.
Next is Reverend Dr. Philip Fleming.
I'll be very brief because this will, more conversation will have to be had, but I wear many hats, but the hat that I wear the most is, community engagement. Everywhere I lived, I try to get involved with my community as much as I can. And so, with that being said, I've been a peer specialist, state certified for over 4 years, but I've been a peer professional for 15. And for the 15 months I lived in Geneva, I've been wondering about, the peer workforce, the work that they do. And there's some good work that's done here, but I'd like to propose another opportunity for not only this community, but pretty much the whole state. I started a non-for-profit 501c4 not too long ago. It's called Hope and Success for the People. And its primary goals including bringing the peer workforce together. You got Council Center of the Finger Lakes, FLACRA, they have a peer workforce, and we're all not connected together. And I like to see that connection, not only with the peer workforce, but also people who, receive support, from these, different types of places. And there's various ways that that can be done. And obviously, something that I would like to discuss in the future. There's probably going to be multiple. Hopefully, there'll be multiple opportunities to talk about this. I did send every member of council some documentation, articles of incorporation, a document that authorized, the 501c4 to operate, including being registered with the state Charities Bureau. One document, unfortunately, the business proposal, could not be open. So I was at your leisure. I was hoping you all would take a look at that. I would have to resend the business proposal. It kind of gives a little more details about the funding that will be needed in the first maybe 2 or 3 years to kind of get things running. And the organization is willing to share space with another agency to cut costs, because we've been talking about efficiency and how we spend our money. So I'm all for that. And with that, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Anya Asatur, and I apologize if I didn't get the last name right. Please correct me when you get up there. I'd like to know how to say it.
Oh, thank you. Hi,
my name's Anya Osatuk, and it's my first time being here. I hope to come back. I'm here kind of with more opinions than information, and I apologize. But I heard that there was talk at the city council meeting or previous ones of potentially redeveloping that burnt down mini mart on Castle Creek, right? And am I correct that that's Restore New York project number 1?
Yes, it is.
Great. And am I correct that it's mixed use housing with also affordable housing included? Is that?
Yes.
Yes, great. Thank you so much. Thank you. I just wanted to say how excited I got over that, because I think that would be so cool. I live within maybe a 10 minutes walk of that area, and I just selfishly was thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be great if there was like a coffee shop or a little bodega or a grocery, like something that I could use on a weekly basis and just like shop there, and for people to live there too, like increase the housing, increase the number of people calling Geneva home. I was so excited by that. I just had to come here and say that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to city manager report.
Okay. You've already heard a lot from me, so please bear with me. First thing, solar eclipse. Initial reports are showing the economic impact is estimated to be 1.2 to 2.4 million in gross sales for the city of Geneva. We'll get more information on that. The estimated total visitors throughout the weekend is over 20,000 is what the estimates are coming in. The other thing is there were no major incidents, and I have to give a lot of compliments to the city team who provided a lot of support throughout that weekend and on the day of the eclipse. And they all took this not only as a serious event, but also as a training exercise should there be another large event. So we have a lot of information from that, and it helped all of the different teams to come together. From everyone at City Hall to our DPW staff, I heard from several people that they saw people flagging that they didn't know would be flagging. A lot of different team members did a lot of different jobs, and everyone kind of came together to do that. The police chief search process is underway. Applications are currently being accepted through the Ontario County application portal. Qualified applicants must meet the minimum requirements. There is a job posting that's out there. We will be looking for promotional or internal applicants as well as external applicants and transfers. And we will consider appointing a candidate who is either a provisional candidate, so there's someone that needs to complete the civil service testing process, or probationary permanent candidates. They have already successfully completed the process and can come on board. All of those materials are due May 13th, and those materials will be reviewed by a stakeholder group. The stakeholder group will have representatives from our police department, our fire department, our city management, school district, higher ed, business leaders, nonprofit leaders, sheriff's office, and a member of the police budget advisory board. And then from there, they will help choose the applicants that, if we have multiple applicants, however big the pool, they'll hone it down to 3 to 5 applicants who will participate in an interview process. The interview process will be a public interview process. And so the forum, there will be a community forum held the evening of May 22nd. It'll be moderated. I will give event details. If you don't already subscribe to all of our updates, we'll make sure to put it there as well as put it in other resources. That evening, though, community members will be able to ask questions in that moderated forum of the candidates. Attendees will then have the opportunity to rate the candidates and provide that feedback to myself. There will also be another piece of that interview process where members of the police department and city leadership staff will meet with the candidates. So it's not a traditional interview, but because this position is very community focused, we wanted to make sure that we're hearing from the community on this. Another position that we're hiring at this time, we are recruiting seasonal laborers. So please, if you know seasonal laborers, have them visit the city website and apply through that Ontario County application portal. That's our summer seasonal help, and we definitely need more of them. In May, June, we will be meeting with the county to talk about housing. They're going to roll out their housing session to different municipalities. They're starting with the city of Canandaigua this month, but we'll be scheduling that meeting to look at their study. Other quick things, spring debris collection time. Residents, please place your leaves and yard debris between the sidewalk and curb, and DPW will come and remove those things. And make sure if you're putting out grass clippings, weeds, small brush, to put it in paper bags, wow, I've talked a lot already. The plastic bags will not be picked up. And also, we do have paper bags that we offer downstairs at the clerk's window. It's a limited supply, but there, I believe, are still some down there. Yes, I'm getting head nods from the clerk and deputy clerk. Debris can also be dropped off and compost at the Resource Recovery Park on Wednesdays from 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Saturdays 8 to 12 p.m. 2 final updates. We already mentioned Public Service Recognition Week, which is next week. I do want to encourage everyone to please celebrate the amazing public servants that are behind the scenes throughout this city. Often you don't know that the public servants are there because things are working well. They only get the calls when things don't work well. So please reach out to them. I am truly impressed by the work our teams take on. Our teams did a lot of the work even in this room and bringing council back here. They're behind the scenes tonight, making sure that our first streaming here, and you've seen some of them pop up. It has been, public service is a labor of love in a lot of ways. And so please reach out to those public servants next week. And finally, Memorial Day Parade. Make sure you save the date for the Memorial Day Parade on Monday, May 27th at 10 a.m.
Thank you. And you're going to hear a lot more about paper bags, not only now, but in the fall, because it is one of our items that cause issues in our storm sewer systems. So when people put them out by the road and they're not in those paper bags, it causes further issues which add to the flooding. So you're going to hear a lot more about that. Councilor Petropoulos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a yes or no question. Would members of council be able to attend, even if silently, these interviews or community?
Any member of the community, which I'm keeping very broad, can attend the community forum on May 22nd.
Very good.
Councilor Morocco, did you? Okay. All right, moving on to new business. Next is a resolution adopting a process to create and update city policies for the City of Geneva Administrative Manual, presented by our city manager. You can't stop talking yet.
I'm getting off soon, though, I think someone else will take over. I think we're going to David next. On this is just a resolution creating a process to update city policies. We have varied city policies already, but they are not uniform, and our practice is not uniform. So this is the first step to making uniform policies for an administrative manual, or what we call inside City Hall the policy on policies, which then sets all policies.
Triple policy.
Yep.
I need a motion. By Councilor Gilat, seconded by Councilor Petropoulos. Any discussion on the policies, setting the policies for the policies?
It's not even funny. You should never say that.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye. Caught me for a loop. You skipped me last time.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Counselor Levin?
Counselor Lavin says yes.
Levin, thank you. Counselor Peeler?
Nay.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye. Did you get everybody?
Yes.
Okay, great,
Carried.
thank you.
Carries.
And usually there's a proclamation at the end that says it passed or failed. Thank you. Next is a resolution authorizing application for Restore New York, project number 1, presented by our Director of Planning and Economic Development.
Thank you. So I think you all have heard about this, but I'm going to walk through it quickly. The state of New York has a program called Restore New York. It allows for funding for buildings that are mostly vacant in downtowns that affect a community's vitality. We sought out applications from building owners, people who were interested in taking advantage of this program and who were ready to move forward with a project. I got a lot of applications and divided those applications up into groupings that I thought made sense to submit for a pre-application to New York State. This is run through Empire State Development. We submitted that letter, got some feedback back, Some of the buildings that people were interested in didn't qualify for the program, but the ones that did, we organized into 2 projects to move forward. Because Geneva is considered a moderately distressed community by the criteria that they have, and I'm not going to go into the criteria because we have to have 5 of something like 20 different factors. Luckily, they made a table for us that tells us exactly what we are, moderately distressed. That allows us access to what they call a special project category. Normal projects can ask for a total of 2 million. Special projects can ask for up to 10 million. They have told us, don't ask for the whole thing. So there's some gamesmanship in putting together what we can ask for. This first project, I think, is a really charismatic group of properties. It includes 314 Castle Street, the former Medias building, and replacement of that building with mixed-use 2-story building, approximately the same size, but rotated to have the long side along Castle Street. That opens up the possibility of opening up some of the creek that's covered by the current building. It also means the new building isn't on top of the creek, which I think is a pretty good idea. The second property is 90 Pulteney Street, which is the former DeSales School, and that would be turned into 17 apartments. The third property in there is 336 Main Street, also known as the Women's Club building. That currently only has a small amount occupied. It does have, I think, 1 tenant. Renovations would include a mix of commercial and residential space, 4 additional housing units in that area. And then the last property is 17 Seneca Street, which is about 5,000 square feet of commercial space. It had a fire last year. They're ready to fix it up and get it back into use. So with those projects together, I'm expecting a total ask of maybe under 8 million, but probably close to that if we max out what each of the projects can ask for. This application is due later this month, so the next step is getting your approval to move forward with this. And then we'll do our best and submit it. Again, it's an application. It's competitive. We don't know if we're going to win, but I'm really hopeful.
Need a motion?
Can I ask a question?
Right as soon as we get it on the floor.
Oh, okay.
I need a motion. Councilor Lavin, seconded by Councilor Grimaldi. Discussion. Councilor Grimaldi, you want to start? Sounds like.
Is there any city money going into these projects, or is it all restore money?
So there is a mix of non-city money from different locations. One of these projects, 90 Pulteney Street, is coming to the IDA. They're not asking for a pilot. I want to be super clear about that. They are going to pay full property taxes, but they are asking for the mortgage recording tax and sales tax.
Okay, I was just concerned that we weren't putting money into these projects.
No.
I have Councilor Lavin, Councilor Peeler, and then Councilor Petropoulos.
I assume that, as with all grants, there's some expectation that they perform for so many years with some obligations with a grant like this.
So for properties that voluntarily say that they will have affordable units in that mix, there is a requirement for tracking that affordability. You get a bonus in how much you can ask for that. Most of these projects have not said that they would do that, although 314 Castle Street said that they would include some in there. So, yes.
Councilor Peeler?
So are all the properties, wow, are all the properties mentioned earmarked for subsidized housing?
No.
How many of them are?
Only 314 Castle Street has said that they would include some affordable units.
Okay, but we know that the DeSales unit will be essentially senior living. Is that going to be senior living non?
It's actually not age limited. It's going to be high-end, nice apartments.
Okay. So just one of the properties, 314 Castle, is going to be earmarked for. We call it affordable housing, but there will be a low income requirement to live there.
For some of the units.
Some of the units. How many of like the total?
I think it's not totally determined yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if there was a stipulation that there had to be so many units carved out for that.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Petropoulos.
We talking ideally 8 million per project or 8
No.
million total?
Total.
Okay, and it's non-city money that will add to that, correct?
Correct. It's, well, no, we will not be adding to that. So this is state money. The amount that each project can ask for is, there's a kind of complicated formula for Restore. There's a certain amount per residence, a certain amount per square foot for commercial. The amount for commercial depends on what construction type it is. There's extra money if you have asbestos that you're paid to get rid of. There's extra if you pay to get rid of lead. There's extra for demolition. It's a complicated number, but what it comes out to is with all of these projects together, we're going to be somewhere in that range.
So my question would be, just for clarification, it's an application for Restore New York grant funding,
Mm-hmm.
and how are we handling grant writing? Internally? Externally?
It's a combination.
Okay.
A three-way combination, I would say. So the property owners are responsible for doing a fair portion of it. They obviously have all the information about their buildings. They're coming up with the budgets. They're getting the estimates. You have to have third-party estimates for this. You come up with, photos of your property, kind of a story about what's going on there. Then the city is managing things like this process, getting all of the environmental information, doing the actual inputting of the data, and we are also, my department is working with MRB to help with some of the wrangling of the property owners, keeping everything on track with this tight deadline.
Okay. That's the recipe for success, hopefully.
I hope so.
Everybody good?
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Counselor Peel.
I forgot to ask this as the other part. So are all these properties in question going to remain on the tax roll?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Lavin,
Yes.
Counselor Brennan,
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Aye.
Counselor Morocco,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Carried.
Next is a very similar resolution authorizing application for Restore New York, project number 2, and I believe you explained a lot of it, but do you have more?
I'll just explain what's different about this one. So this is not a special project, so you only get one special project. So this is capped at 2 million, although the ask I expect will be a lot lower than that. I did have in my initial application several more buildings, and it was themed around buildings that have a view of the lake. Most of them were deemed not eligible, so we're down to one in this application package. It's 435 Exchange Street. The proposal is renovate 2 ground floor storefronts, 5 apartments that exist, and 10 new apartments in this building, as well as kind of giving it a facelift on the outside, painting it. Because this application only involves one property owner, the work of doing the application, other than these very city-oriented things, falls to that property owner, and they're working with a consultant on their own dime. So they'll draft everything. The work from the city will be putting it into the online form, and things like this, having the public hearing, are responsibilities.
No, I need a motion, sorry. Counselor Lavin, seconded by Counselor Whitfield. Discussion. Counselor Peeler.
Just to help me out with those cross streets, is this on the corner of Castle and Exchange
Yes.
across the street from the Dove Block heading north?
Yes.
Oh, it's the same building as it's Lake City Hobby.
Yep.
Okay.
Anybody else? I compliment the owner. He's tried for these funds before. He's determined he's going to renovate that building, so. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Lavin,
Aye.
Counselor Brennan,
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Aye.
Counselor Morocco,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino,
Aye.
carried.
Next is a resolution to select a kayak vendor for a lakefront rental project presented by David again.
Thank you. So I want to start off with mea culpa. So you have paper copies in front of you because I made a mistake in providing information for the agenda, and things were a little wonky in there. So you didn't have the full applications. I want to, I guess, throw myself at your mercy at how you would like to proceed with this. I can walk you through the three proposals and the important differences between them. Now, if you want to take time to do that, we could choose a smaller group, or you could appoint staff to move forward looking at things. Several of these have some, we'll negotiate on, location or the exact fee or the exact way that it would work. So I think any of them is going to involve a little bit further discussion after choosing a preferred vendor tonight, but I thought I'd start with that information and hear how you'd like to proceed, especially given the time.
Yeah, with us getting this close to summer, I think, can we have a Cliff Note or Reader's Digest version? I'm not sure which
Yeah.
era I'm from. I'm from both eras. But there's probably a newer term nowadays.
Spark Notes.
Okay.
Wikipedia.
Great.
Okay.
So why don't I walk you through each of them, and we'll do it as quickly as possible. And we'll start with the one with the very pretty picture on the front.
Okay.
For clarity, we're not choosing the RFP. You're selecting it, right?
When I came to you before, I don't know, I described it as that you would choose. You would be certainly within your process to just designate the city manager or the department. It's up to you. But because I was concerned that there was, questionable feelings about this, people wanted to be really sure about it, my initial proposal was that council would choose.
It's all yours. Fire away.
Great. So this application is the one that you have not had as much time to see. She's calling the business Seneca Lake Water Sport Rentals. The team that's put together here has not run this kind of business before, but does bring some interesting experience, including underwater robot technician, veteran, people with experience in marketing, etc. She's proposed putting this business in the general location we are looking for on the beach near Castle Creek, with a 10 by 10 storage shed, also a 10 by 10 tent, maybe some kayak and paddleboard storage racks for 350 square feet total. She did request in this that the city would make some kind of flat landing place for that equipment. So I'll note the things that people asked for as well as what they said they would give. She suggested having 6 single, 2 double kayaks, 10 paddle boards, and the associated things that go along with that. Staffing 4 days a week, 10 to 6 p.m., and then having some additional events like kayak or paddleboard yoga. The rates starting at $20 an hour. The lease fee, this proposal suggests that it would be a percentage that we would negotiate of the net profits. So we don't have a real clear example of exactly what it would be. In benefits to the community, they said they would do monthly Seneca Lake cleanups, where volunteers would do some work cleaning up the lakefront in exchange for a free kayak rental, which is kind of cool. And also doing some partnering with a yoga and wellness business and doing some conservation and wildlife teaching events. She had a little bit about marketing, collaborating with the Finger Lakes Welcome Center, getting stuff online, social media, etc. So that's that one. The next one is the one without a bold title. It's Woodward Rentals. This person previously ran a kayak rental business on Canandaigua Lake from 2017 to 2019. And then closed that down when I guess that city, Canandaigua, was more interested in someone to only run the kind of hot dog vending concessionaire and not as interested in kayaks, and they didn't want to do that anymore and moved to Geneva. Similarly, their proposed location is Castle Creek. This one wasn't sure exactly what kayak storage method they would want to use and offered several options, including trailers that could have racks that could be moved in and out from day to day to park in a location where it's out of the way at night and come over to a closer area during the day. An enclosed trailer that would take up 2 parking spaces most of the time, or just stacking and locking up kayaks or building a wooden rack. So some various options. She also said they could do they could do a shed, which is what we proposed in the RFP, but that it's expensive and not really necessary for sure. Their preference was a rack similar to the racks that we just built for the general public to use that could store kayaks, but some flexibility there. They would operate the normal season, probably starting a little late this year, which I think is probably going to be the case for everyone. They offered a few more kayaks, so 10 individual, 4 to 6 two-person, 10 paddle boards, with ramping up over the years. So this is a 3-year contract that we proposed, trying to get to 25 kayaks, 20 paddle boards, and 10 doubles. Staffing, let's see. This one, it's probably 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 the first year, and they would look at later hours in the second and third years. The rental rate is a little higher. This one includes a specific lease fee to the city, starting at $1,500 for year 1, $2,500 for year 2, and $3,500 for year 3. I'll say right now, this is the most of the 3. It's by a significant amount. It does mention they would really like a 5-year contract. We only offered this as a 3-year test program.
Where are we going as a city? Are we inviting 1 to 4 people in? Are we inviting people who are going to kayak?
Excuse me, there's public comments over.
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of offers to the community, in Canandaigua, they had a program with a community group that you could get free rentals if you were part of some of their programming. She didn't have something specifically lined up, but suggested working with the Boys and Girls Club or another group to provide some access to people who wouldn't be able to pay the $30 per hour rate. And the marketing strategy is fairly similar. And so I thought that one was interesting, particularly because of the very direct experience. The last one is much thicker. It has a heading up at the top. This one, Seneca Lake Water Rentals and Tours, LLC, Bob and Donna Stivers. So this one, it gets a little bit more complicated. This business has been operating in this area at Bodie's Hill and also operates a marina. So they have a lot of experience with that. They're planning on being open 7 days a week, 1 to 8 p.m. Cost is $20 a person, which is the same as the first, but slightly less than the second. They're interested in having tickets that would be sold at a bunch of locations around the city, and did ask if they could be sold by the city as well at Rec, if they could be sold at the Welcome Center. Those are kind of negotiation things. They want to work around events like Cruisin' Night and Garlic Festival. They want to have classes, specific systems for renting to parties, doing training. What else? Special programs for school groups would be possible. They talked about the benefits to the area, to tourism and other things. Again, they would start basically around Memorial Day. It may be tight at this point in time, but I know they actually already have most of the materials on hand until Labor Day, 1 to 8 p.m. They asked for a bit more from the city. For example, they would like a 5-year lease with a 5-year extension option at their option. For the first year, they're offering a $250 fee for the first 5 years, actually. And then we could negotiate a different fee for the next 5 years. They definitely wanted to be sure that we gave them permission to do a lot of signage, possibly with lighting, some signs that are 3 foot by 8 foot, 3 foot by 5 foot on 5 and 20. What else? Some liability insurance covering the area. I think our liability insurance does cover the park, but they want to be named as an additional insured. They said access to a ticket booth, which I'm wondering if that means a connection to the Welcome Center, which I don't know that we can facilitate. They're looking at having a pop-up tent and beach chairs that they'd remove nightly, and then also some kind of storage, maybe an 8x8 shed, a box for life jackets, possibly a trailer or box tracks, or some new racks. They are also offering that as part of this, they would kind of maintain the general area between the beach and the tour boat dock, including pressure washing the docks, policing the area, directing tourists, giving general oversight. Their description of what they would provide is 8 kayaks, 2 canoes, 2 paddle boards, and then some things that you could rent to boaters, motorboaters, wakeboards, skis, tubes, and ropes, and then 12 bicycles. So this is the only one that includes bicycles. What else? Obviously, people who know a lot about the area and have a lot of experience with boating on Cayuga Lake. I
Okay,
think that's about as Reader's Digest as I can get.
so let's get it on the floor so we can discuss it, and then we can go from there and decide what we want to do, okay? So can I get a motion? Counselor Lavin, seconded by Counselor Peeler.
Second.
Discussion. I will start. I have no problem starting. So, you talked about us making a selection, and I think, the challenge that I've heard, about our original kayak rack that we're putting down there, and putting more structures on the lakefront, we have to be sensitive to the view. And I think that's one of the challenges. Interesting enough, I almost like that trailer taking up 2 spots, coming and going, so it's less intrusive on the actual lakefront itself. That one has me interested, at least in that, and I do like the revenue opportunity, because it's a guaranteed revenue opportunity there. See our comptroller nodding her head in the back. The second one, the Woodward
This is
Rentals
Woodward.
LLC. And they've got experience, so I mean, to me, that kind of stands out a lot, and I really like that. The first one is somewhat interesting too, even though I think experience is gonna bode well for this operation, and it says Pennsylvania, so are they coming from Pennsylvania and hiring somebody locally, or I'm missing something there?
So I did notice with that one, let's see, that the, what was it, under the, maybe I'm thinking of a different one. I don't have a good answer for you.
I just want, you can
Yeah.
look while we're talking. I just wanted to be cautious that, we're talking about something that is a pilot program. We're talking about 3 years, and ownership of that pilot program is gonna be very important to me. Councilor Petropoulos.
First off, you're basically asking us to make a decision, and this is really the first time any of us have seen this, so that's one thing. If I have to go with anyone, I'm going to prefer the Navy veteran with combat lifesaver. I'm just saying. I don't know anything about this. I think my recommendation is that we have a special meeting to further look into this, and I cannot in good conscience vote on somebody tonight, because we'd be holding our nose and, throwing caution to the wind. So those are my comments.
Councilor Lavin.
It seems to me that this is something for the staff to really get their arms around, but I also wonder if somebody like the Recreation Department shouldn't have a daily oversight of something like this for performance and troubleshooting, because it is taking part of the asset of the community in that area. But I trust, and they're in a better place. Lacking committees to study these more closely, I'm with Mr. Petropoulos, whose name I pronounced properly.
Anybody else? Because, Counselor, go ahead, Counselor.
I like the second proposal as well. I like caution to the wind. I like the fee. Looks pretty good. I think perfect scenario, I don't think we can find one. Let's start somewhere and get it going, and then make adjustments as we go. I mean, I would assume that if we got in the contract and there was some violations or whatever, we could snip the contract. So I think we're okay there. I mean, this would be, if they could do it, and probably just for the picture, but different colored kayaks and stuff, that's an eye catcher going by. I think it's important, no matter who we pick, make sure it looks great. I think the mayor's suggestion as far as not taking away too much from the view, or maybe enhancing it somehow. I don't think the other two proposals do that. So that's my 2 cents.
Yep. If one thing I want to let you all know, I don't know how often you go to the lakefront, but there are currently the 2 racks that we discussed building for the community. They are there. Today we rented our first space on one. I do want you to know that we talked about those both being by the boat ramp, and one of them is not. We can adjust that. I think it's in a good spot. It's near the pier, on the Castle Creek beach. Basically, like they say, every great plan doesn't survive first contact with the enemy. The areas we looked at are bumpier than we expected, and this is kind of the building and grounds crew's thoughts on the best location. I think it's good. I don't see an issue, but I wanted you to know when you see it that that's where that's going. And I do think that this vendor, could kind of set up down by that rack that's near Castle Creek.
So I see a couple options, maybe 3 options. One is to provide direction to staff. The other one, to staff with a specific selection. The other one is to provide direction to staff to make a selection. And the other one is to table and have more discussion. Is there a flavor from anyone? Counselor Peeler?
So I agree with what Jim said, and I think this ought to be tabled and go to a work session with some real kind of bearing down on this, because I would be remiss to not mention that proposals really are just talk. And we've all learned that talk is cheap. And just because you can say it doesn't mean you can do it. And there's a short list of people, of proposals that we've received that have put the rubber to the road and consistently invested in this community. Only one. So proposals can come far and wide, and we could also have to reel from proposals that boasted too much, that offered too much, and then couldn't close the deal on our community. So that's my 2 cents, and I definitely think that this needs to go to a special work session.
Counselor Gillette, did you have more?
Yeah, I'll agree with the tabling as long as we make a decision that night and move it forward instead of dragging our feet too much.
So there's a lot of talk. Anybody making a motion?
Motion to table.
Counselor
Second.
Petropoulos makes a motion to table. Counselor,
Can I ask one question first?
yes.
Would it be agreeable, just because I know some of your schedules and some people are going to be out of town, so I want to make sure, you have an attorney-client meeting on May 13th. Sorry, David, it's another Monday. Oh, you're out of town because you're at the conference.
We don't need them.
Okay, well, we can survive without him, but that is the next
fine.
meeting that you have on your schedule, and just because if we want to get this rolling, I think it's important to meet probably in May. I start losing a lot of people that following week.
Can I make a suggestion?
you can.
Maybe put another option on the table, which is you may not all need to meet if you were comfortable appointing 3, 4, 5 people to meet and make the decision. It doesn't need to be the whole council if you appointed a review group.
Let's work on that after I have a second for the table, and that's by Counselor Peeler, and that stops the discussion. And I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll on tabling this resolution.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Aye.
Counselor Brennan. Counselor Lavin,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye.
Counselor Morocco,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Nay. So,
Carried.
the resolution has been tabled, and I will request counselors that are interested in this topic to please respond, today's Wednesday, just please respond by Friday, your interest and your availability, and if May 13th works for you or not. That way staff can provide some support for the discussion, okay? By Friday. Thank you very much. Is that okay?
That's okay. And you already have a session May 13th for attorney clients, so I'm assuming it works for most.
Okay, next is a resolution to establish the 2025 budget utilizing the same tax levy as 2024, presented by Councilor Lavin.
I so move as written. Needs a second.
It's a short resolution, so can you just read it, please?
Sure. Whereas the city has undergone a major reassessment, and whereas many residents had significant assessment increases, now therefore be it resolved, the council directs the city manager to prepare a 2025 budget that will not increase the city's tax levy above the 2024 level as residents adjust to the new tax positions.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilor Brennan, discussion. And anytime there's a resolution like this, just for now, if it's short, usually I like to read them.
Sure.
If it's lengthy, just give a summary of what
Sure.
it's about, that's fine.
Right.
So discussion, you want to start, Councilor Lavin?
Sure. I think we had the beginnings of a budget discussion tonight, and we have the opportunity here to signal to the people of Geneva that we get what's happened. While it's not going to raise everybody's taxes, some people went up, particularly in my area, over $100,000. So even with a small the scenario increase here, they would have significant increases. But at the other end of town, where houses are also expensive because they have 4 apartments in them supported by rents, they also, the owners of those buildings, are going to see changes as the amount of funding shifts from commercial to residential in this assessment. We have to move it backwards in the tax rate and the tax levy. The tax levy is actually more important. What are we taking from the people? To go up another couple million is what we've been doing for 25 years here, and it got us out of line. And we have to focus as much on revenue generation and savings. We have to focus on things like combination of resources with the town and use our city assets to generate more revenue, not just more taxes. So I think this is an opportunity for a year to signal that we get it. We know we have some work to do, and this can be done, I believe. I'm not the controller, I'm not the city manager, but that for a 1-year hiatus in the creeping tax rate that has got us where we are today, which is not in a good place, that it would be a good thing for the community.
Councilor Peeler, I saw your hand up.
So I agree with almost everything that Councilor Lavin just said. But I don't think the way to do it is to chain up the total levy. I believe it takes away our ability to make logical decisions, takes away our ability to be flexible. We take money out of the fund balance all the time. And we take money out of the fund balance because under normal situations, it would have been capitalized by taxes and raising the taxes to cover it. Labor rates are going up. What's our current labor rate per capital expense? Is it 75% of our budget is labor? It's an enormous amount. It's way more than half. So an enormous amount of our budget is labor, and all the labor rates, if not most, are going up. We know they're going up. So here we are. So we're going to raise the labor rates some percentage, but we're going to keep the levy the same. That means services are not going to go, are going to, we're, you know, less response times for public safety. It's going to be less handling of our roads. All right, you know, that pothole's going to be there for another 2 years. Okay, or maybe it's going to be someone getting fired. You want to volunteer your family member to lose their retirement and lose their income, right? Or be worked to death with overtime because they won't hire the staff for you. So that's the things that we think about, and I just don't think we should chain ourselves to this number. Even though for every, what was it, 3 out of the last 6 councils, I've motioned to strike the entire salary of city council because I just wasn't pleased with the way we performed. So I was like, you know what? Then we shouldn't get paid. And that was defeated, but I still made the motion. So I agree that we should control the levy and be mindful of all of our expenses, but I don't think we should do it this way.
Nobody else? Okay, I'm going to put my 2 cents in. It is an admirable suggestion. I think the challenge for me is very similar to what Councilor Peeler is saying. I like to put the professionals to work, and they've told us this in the 2025 focus that they're going to be how they're going to be looking at. We all know that everything from health insurance to labor costs to construction costs to gas to everything is increasing. So in our own households, we have to make those adjustments in our budgets or work second jobs or whatever it might be to be able to compensate. So I like to leave the ability in the staff's hands with our direction to be as efficient, as conservative, but still provide the services that the citizens of Geneva require. And, you know, I kind of look back, being on this council for quite some time, I think some of the challenges we've had are making decisions for bonding for large dollars to do projects that would create the infrastructure, would create the draw for the private-public investments. And, you know, I don't want to take that tool away. It can be a little challenging to make those decisions, to step out on that limb a little bit, to spend money to make money. But we've done that, I think, fairly successfully in the last 20 years. I would love to see the tax rate go down. I think that would be very beneficial. I'm meeting with the assessor Friday because mine was $90,000. But, you know, I think there's challenges. Quit laughing, Mary. There's challenges for everybody in every household, and we need to be conscious, and I think staff has that message. So I think that's important. That's my 2 cents. Councilor Lavin? Yeah, if nobody else wants to go, we'll go round 2.
I absolutely can see the sentiment, but we've been saying that for the same 20 and 25 years, and that's where we got where we are today. And I don't know that we're owning up to where we are. We are way out of line. Houses are continuing to fall down at a time of big demand for housing, and it's because of our tax rate. And we have to do something about it. But I really don't care. The rate is going to come down because you had a 44% increase in the assessment. It's the money you take from the taxpayer that really matters. And the tax rate for every surrounding community here is going to go down because they all had significant rising of the tides of the Finger Lakes. So we're not going to help ourselves competitively unless we start taking on some of the tougher decisions. Stop spending, start looking for ways to make the town stand up with us, make the surrounding communities that count on our assets to grow, and demanding equity. The city of Geneva is being, I'm sorry I use it, I should say, is being taken advantage of and has been for many years by the use of its assets to grow outside where the taxes go, particularly the sales tax in the town where they ring the city with new commercial. And so I do think we have an opportunity here. We do have an opportunity with the rising tide of the Finger Lakes to do this in the most painless way. But there's some pain, and you got to start somewhere. And no offense to our professional management. I respect them. I like their independence, but it's us that set the goals. It's not them. We have to say we have to do this. We have to, as a community, align our resources with our assets. Our houses are cheaper, yes, because our taxes are high and our services are not as good as other places in terms range of services that they get. So we have an opportunity here. We have it with the single occupancy, the single rentals too, but I think you can put it off another year. We're just another council that's kicking the can down the road. And 7 of us were hired new here this year to do it a little bit different. So.
Councilor Petropoulos.
Yes, I too on principle agree with both Councilor Levin and the mayor. It's a tough call. My 2 cents, I'm going to hold staff to higher expectations, communication and competence. Basically, it's up to the city to communicate to its people and us as well that, all right, we're not going to keep it at 0 because if we do, nothing's going to get done. But at the same time, we're going to give staff the opportunity to be creative and, as per the sample budget, see if we can't bring the taxes down while not eliminating services. I also have to agree with Councilor Lavin on what's the town getting away with. How can we tactfully and in a nicer way than not stick them for what they should be paying us? I mean, if we're giving them assets, water, and they're just, no, that's not fair either. So we need to get creative. I don't think keeping the tax levy at 0 is necessarily going to do it because of what the mayor said, what Councilor Peeler says. But on principle, I agree with Councilor Lavin. We do need to do better.
Our city manager has a comment.
I just want to make sure that we're talking about all of the same things. So when we talk water and sewer, those come out of water and sewer funds. That's not part of our tax levy. Those are 2 separate pieces of this puzzle. When we talk about sales tax, it doesn't matter if you shop in the town or you shop in the city of Geneva. Sales tax is done and divided through a formula in Ontario County. So Ontario County sales tax, while we can look at our estimates, it all impacts us as a whole. So I just want to make those things clear. There are other things that we could have discussions about. I know mutual aid has been a piece that has come up before, and staff track mutual aid and what that means. Those things definitely are opportunities to look at how we're working with our municipal partners, and that goes back to the strategic priorities that I heard from your retreat. So I think those things are definitely considerations that you need to have, but I wanted to make sure that everyone understands water and sewer are not part of your general fund. They're not part of that tax levy. There is a whole formula that goes into that, and as part of that, we are doing, and I will forget the name of the study, but we're doing a study that helps us define that. It's a HeadWorks study as part of the title. And we will look at those rates again, but they do not lower your property taxes. They lower what you pay for water and sewer. Those are different things.
Let me say, I only brought up water and sewer because it's an asset the city can use as leverage to right the ship. It can do things like force a discussion of fire departments combining and sharing revenues, or sharing assets to reduce costs in both places. That stuff is only going to happen if there's a price on the town. And I know some people don't want to use water and sewer as leverage, but that's what's allowed the town to grow and to build its tax base at the expense of the city. And I think we're just at a part where we have to start using all of our assets in effective ways that do affect, indirectly anyway, the future finances of the city. But I'm done. Sorry.
Councilor Gilat.
I mean, I'm missing something here. Why do we have to box ourselves in now? Why can't we just have this conversation when we're going through the budget process? Like, I'm not comfortable doing that. I'm not comfortable boxing in anything. Being new at this, and one other thing I'd like to do, sidebar, if we can get that first report before September 16th, that'd be great, but.
You'll be lucky to get it the day of. Actually, we don't give it out, but prior.
Okay.
If that's a question, I can answer it.
Well, no, my point is, I can't see why we have to box it in now. I mean, I think the public's getting the right idea that all of us agree, we don't want taxes, raise taxes. We want to look at this very intelligently and go through line by line, like you talked about numerous times.
Right.
And I'm total on board with that.
Right.
But I don't feel comfortable boxing this in now without even seeing a budget or even going through the process or even have more education on the process.
And the process has been that you see it September 1st, you have a few weeks, a couple meetings, and you're not in a position to really have set the work that the manager has to do to achieve a goal unless she's given it. You can't wait till September to say, okay, now take this budget and cut 20% out of it. That'll never happen. So you start early. That's the answer to that, in my opinion.
No further discussion? Clerk, please call.
I
Go ahead,
want
Counselor
to,
Keller.
yeah, real quick. So, I've lived here my whole life, 46 years, and I can tell you this, that the reason why our homes are expensive or are so affordable or low, it's because our buying power reflects the economics of our city. It's not because our taxes are high. That's the wrong way to look at it. It's the other way around. That's putting the cart in front of the horse. So there needs to be a real mathematical realization of what's true. And what's true is home values reflect the economy that they're in. And our average incomes are low by a lot. And our population decline is in front of that. We are at a negative population growth. But our poverty rate is flat or up. So you plant corn, you grow corn. Okay, so if you, it's actually quite awesome that our assessments jumped 40%. I know that I'm gonna have people throwing tomatoes at me out there. But generally speaking, when you hear that, that's because home buyers are moving in, and that those rates are going up. But I don't know if that's what's causing our 40% increase in assessments. I think there's a substantial amount of homes that are being commercialized and commoditized for the short-term rental market. And that's driving prices up. So that means, yes, we're going to be paying more taxes, but we're not going to be seeing the community that we're accustomed to. We're not going to be seeing the neighborhoods that we grew up in, playing football in the street and going in the park. You're not going to be seeing that. Nope, you're going to see cans of beer on the sidewalk for 2 days a week. And I can, don't shake your head, it's on my street right now. Right now, a street that used to be a one-way street, sleepy little neighborhood, and there is a house that got moved to the short-term rental market. And yes, 9 out of 10 rentals are awesome, but once in a while, you get that one that makes it look like a building that's outside New York City for 2 days, and there's just garbage bags everywhere. All right, and that's happening. So the real question is how are we going to keep moving the city forward and enhance our community for our neighborhoods and home buyers? That's my goal here. All city staff know when we had our retreat, my number one thing was population decline as a problem that we need to metrically solve with actual steps. It's a giant 800-pound elephant, and we got to take it one bite at a time and measure our success one bite at a time. And I feel like if we don't do that, all we're going to do is spin our wheels and go, why is this happening? So simple. And it's not, I am with you, but not the way we're doing. I've said that, I'm with you, but I'm not sure if that's the way. Because I think we should be flexible in the way we make our decisions. That's it. That's all I want to say. It's our home prices aren't high because our home prices aren't low because our taxes are high. It has to do with the economy. Do people have money? Do people have money? Because that's how economies work. The money supply drives prices. That's how inflation works. More money, less value. Thank you.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Lavin?
Yes.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Nay.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Nay.
Counselor Gilat?
Nay.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Nay.
Pardon?
Nay.
Thank you. Counselor Morocco?
Nay.
Mayor Valentino?
Nay.
Defeated.
Next is a resolution to provide staff direction to redistrict short-term rental locations presented by Councilor Lavin.
This is in some ways a variation on the theme. If the plan that the city currently has for the short-term rentals is going to turn 132 homes, single-family homes, out of the market for single families and turn it to outside investors, and it's a devastating body blow to the residential area of the city at a time when, if we chose, we could direct that development effort and that interest into the sections of the city where this is appropriate. Downtown, where the buildings always hang by a thread in a lot of cases and could get benefit by having this privilege of using this purpose. and the South Main Street corridor where the row houses are actually set up and operated like this already in many ways. They also could get a benefit from, and many of them, 200 years old as they are, also hang by a different kind of thread. So that's my suggestion for handling short-term rentals. You saw the gentleman this evening who, but actually, I think I need a second, don't I, Your Honor, before I go on?
If you go I so move, yes?
Yeah, I so move.
Can we have a second on that? Counselor Whitfield, and just for clarification for those that don't have the resolution in front of you, the resolution is, instead of allowing short-term rentals anywhere in the city, to allow them only in South Main Street extending to the 5 and 20 Cloverleaf, and in the downtown BID section of the city. And anybody that currently owns a short-term rental will be provided a sunset period to be determined, where they would have to stop short-term rentals. So just as a general overview. So discussion.
Yeah, we had, just to finish up what I was going to say, we had a gentleman tonight who was a classic case for the micro. It's ruining his neighborhood, ruining his life. The macro is even more devastating, taking 130-something homes currently out of the inventory that is available for families and the workers that make this community, and giving it over to investors, some of them from far away, not managing the property, and not putting a limit on any further number. So that 130 today, one of the gentlemen who was here the other night was had a brother in Rochester who had 40 short-term rentals, and he'd purchased 2 in Geneva and planned to purchase more. It is a market, it's changing us, and it's going to hurt our economic development possibilities. It's not healthy investment for Geneva at this point in the makeup of our community and what we need. So that's my pitch.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Yes, the gentleman in question lives in my district. I've had conversations with him. As per the resolution we're considering on regulating short-term rentals, I have 2 things to share with the audience. For starters, this past weekend I did speak with a renowned realtor here in town, who informed me that at this point in time, the short-term rental market's starting to peter out, and it's not quite the prospect it might have been. So a lot of these people are going to sell, and the realtors are aware of what's going on. They're going to try to sell to private homeowners, basically. So that's one thing. The second thing is the resolution we have, we're working on, and as soon as we can come up with certain numbers, we'll hopefully vote on. This is a way to make it easier to code such troublesome short-term rentals out of existence. That is my preference. I am perfectly happy being downtown to steer new bed and breakfast downtown, but to sunset somebody, they made an investment in good faith. I'm going to say that most of them, as Councilor Peeler said, are good folks. They rent to good people. Yeah, occasionally you get your troublemakers. Well, again, what we're discussing is, how that's going to be better regulated. Parking is another issue we have to revisit. But in the meantime, sunsetting someone, how would it feel? How would I feel if somebody told me you got to move out and you got a year to do it? After however long I've been here, invested, I would be a little shocked too. But yes, I agree with regulating them. I agree that residential areas may not be the best place for them, but we'll let the market, do part of it. We'll let regulations do another part of it. I don't like the sunset clause. I certainly do agree that if you want to steer them downtown, we got room downtown. The bid area is not hanging by a thread, but there are spaces that could be renovated and could be used for that purpose. Again, who wants to? Well, that's something we can discuss down the road. But in the meantime, to forcibly sunset anybody, however long you give them, it's basically, giving them an ultimatum, and I can't be comfortable with that. But I do agree in principle, we do need to curtail it in any way we can without, every house becoming an STR, and we do need to better regulate them. I think we're working on that, but in the meantime, I don't think we should sunset anybody. There are other ways to do it.
Counselor Gilat.
I expressed this before. I'm not for sunsetting. I'm a business owner. I can't see telling somebody that a year down the road you're out. I would support restrictions or number of, which we discussed as well, to help control how many short-term rentals are in the actual neighborhoods per se. And like you said, try to funnel them back towards downtown. And I think South Main Street's pretty populated now, isn't it, with short-term rentals?
No.
So that's a major area right there. So that's where I stand with this.
Anybody else?
I would want to follow up. You said in good faith. These people came to town without license, built a commercial property in a residential neighborhood. We as a council, and that was not any of us, or at least most of us, didn't respond for the longest period to something that is in my face a prima facie example of violating zoning, our zoning laws that were in effect, and that it's not in good faith. It was in Wild West speculation that's causing problems in town already. So if we wanted to leave it 132 current and let it happen more in downtown and South Main Street, I'd be fine, bite the bullet and they can run the sunset ones as long as they want. But if you leave it open, we're gonna lose 300, 400 houses to the working people of Geneva. There's several times tonight we've said, I agree in principle, but we're not what are we, for not voting on principle here? I mean, this is what, we're being timid at a time when doing the opposite would improve the city. It would improve the housing stock. It would give support to properties that are on edge. But again, I'll leave it at that.
We're gonna give everybody else a chance before we go for round two. Councilor Brennan.
It's 104 properties, just to pick that's 79%
Thank
of
you.
132. But the argument is still strong. I'm intrigued by Councilor Lavin's argument. But I also would like everyone to know that I also am in the short-term rental business, and some of them are in the row house district, and some of them are downtown, and one of them is on St. Clair Street. So I've got both sides of the fence, if you will. If it comes to a vote, I might consider abstaining. I would appreciate Mr. Marks's point of view about that, because I'm not sure I should be qualified in voting for this resolution. But I did want to just simply say that I'm intrigued by the proposition that I'm not aware of that any city is doing anywhere else in the United States. At least I'm just not aware of it. Everyone is grappling with how to regulate short-term rentals in their respective communities. Bose, among other things. I guess do I have to leave too? Everyone's leaving.
I think we've hit the.
Do we hit a wall?
No, we hit a physical limitation. We'll put it that way.
Anyway, just a couple of thoughts. Anyway, so again, I'm intrigued by it. I think we should give this some consideration. I do, as a community. It would solve some of the housing issues. We haven't talked much about that yet this year, but we will. It's coming down the pike. And those are my 2 cents.
Thank you. Just a minute. Councilor Whitfield?
Am I allowed to read something that I wrote pertaining to this
Sure.
issue? I oppose the proliferation of short-term rentals in our city, as they represent not just a housing issue, but a moral one. The unchecked growth of these rentals perpetuates a vicious cycle of gentrification, where lower and middle-class families are not only priced out of their neighborhoods, but out of their city entirely, as they are forced to seek affordable housing on the outskirts. This displacement erodes the very fabric of our community, erasing the diversity and vibrancy that make our city unique. Furthermore, the influx of absentee buyers who view our properties as mere investments, not homes, exacerbates the problem, hollowing out our neighborhoods and depriving native Genevans of the opportunity to live in the homes they grew up in. Additionally, these rentals often flout noise ordinances, disrupting the sanctity of our neighborhoods and robbing residents of the peace and quiet they deserve. It's imperative that we take a stand against short-term rentals, not just for the sake of preserving our housing stock, but for the soul of our city itself. I feel that decisions are being made from personal business gains. We always talk about economics, development, revenue, and restoring the structure of Geneva, but our people make up the true structure.
So I'm going to disagree, Counselor, as I have been formally. I'm not going to agree with you on this one by any means. And there's just short-term rentals didn't ask to come here. They didn't have to ask to come here. They did legally purchase properties within the city of Geneva, and they legally, because there wasn't anything stopping them from conducting business in the city of Geneva. And my concern is that when we look at short-term rentals, and we're going to have a resolution coming for a public hearing, and we're going to have a first reading of ordinance coming next, which I seriously look forward to. And I compliment staff on their efforts of putting together this ordinance, and I'm disappointed that it's not on the books already, because it gives us the opportunity to control short-term rental activities. And it's not just short-term rentals that disrupt the fabric of our neighborhood. We'd be blind if we thought that there wasn't long-term rentals or home occupancies that disrupted fabrics of neighborhoods. Those take place also. It's all about how you treat your neighbors and how you would like to be treated, and sometimes that's not a concern of certain people. So for me, I'm looking forward to put some regulations in place. I'm looking forward to get accountability. We're going to know who these short-term rentals are. We're going to have somebody close by that can respond to issues immediately. We're going to have disciplinary actions that will take place after multiple violations. They will have the short-term rentals taken away. And if somebody continually violates our laws in the city of Geneva, our regulations in the city of Geneva, they're going to find themselves without a license to be able to rent. And on top of that, there's the structure that these short-term rentals, the majority of the short-term rentals operate in. They operate in whether it's Airbnb or VRBO. And if they don't get good ratings, they don't get people that rent their properties. So for us, there's kind of putting our own regulations in place and having the short-term rental websites have regulations in place, and having the majority, right now, the majority of these properties, as we heard the other night in our work session, are complying and are doing the right things. So it's just a minority, and hopefully our ordinance that we hopefully put in place will correct those minority groups that are violating short-term rental situations in our neighborhoods. Councilor, we're going to go round to anybody who hasn't spoken yet that would like to, because I see Councilor Petropoulos and Councilor Whitfield would like to speak again. Councilor Petropoulos?
Well, I'll make it quick. Basically, Mr. Mayor, you pretty much said it all. I think Councilor Lavin's suggestion could be refined rather than, I don't want to swing the bat too hard the first time, we might miss. But if we refine it, if we think about, all right, let's look at the zoning question. Let's see what we can do to curtail future, wanted investing in short-term rentals, rather than just pull the rug out from anyone we don't like. For all I know, the problem STR on, where my constituent lives, they might somehow sneak under the radar, and those are the ones we need to concentrate on. I do agree with Councilor Whitfield that the less housing is available, the less people can actually live here. But I will say again, the market seems to be headed in the direction that short-term rentals aren't, as I said the other day, the get-rich-quick scheme everybody seems to think they are. It's really a question of how we regulate it. I think a combination of, yes, restricting where future short-term rentals go without necessarily sunsetting anything, combined with more heavy regulation and being more on top of these things, that will be the best route. Again, like Councilor Gillette said, I don't agree with sunsetting, but I do agree with restricting where future STRs go.
Councilor Whitfield.
If I may, you speak that the fabric isn't torn because of just the short-term rentals. However, you can say that to the public eye because you are not being affected by these short-term rentals moving in. I live in this town, and there are many families that have been pushed out to the outskirts. You can speak on just the stitch of this fabric, but you don't know that people are being pushed out of the communities. And no one wants to talk about this because it's pertaining to the people. We're always talking about economical growth, but who are you talking about economical growth for? That's the question at hand.
Thank you, Counsel, but you make an assumption that I'm not impacted or I don't know. Anybody else before we call the roll? Or legal, would you like to provide some advice to Counselor Brennan on whether he should or should not, seeing he does own short-term rentals?
Counselor Brennan, for purposes of this motion, I'll recommend that you abstain just to avoid the appearance of impropriety. And then you and I can talk offline about potential future motions regarding short-term rentals and the nature of your conflict of interest.
Thank you very much.
Counselor, what, can I have?
Yep.
Earlier, when we were talking about this during the previous meeting, the discussion of enforcement came up. And I asked you a series of questions about what enforcement really would look like. 3 strikes, maybe a city court judge decision, and then an appeal to the state Supreme Court that could take 6 months to revoke a license. That's what I remember from the conversation.
So under the proposed ordinance, there would be a strike system by which the license would be revoked if a certain number of violations occurred. If that threshold is reached, it's initially suspended and then ultimately, if the violations continue, revoked. And that revocation then is final pending, as you noted, appeals and potential court cases on that revocation. But the ultimate revocation would still stand unless overturned by the ZBA or a court.
The initial appeal goes to the Zoning Board of Appeals?
The first appeal, yes.
Yeah.
6 months.
Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Levin,
Aye.
Counselor Brennan,
Abstain?
Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Nay.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Nay.
Counselor Gilat,
Nay.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Nay.
Counselor Morocco,
Nay.
Mayor Valentino,
Nay.
defeated.
Next is a resolution establishing a public hearing at our next June meeting, June 5th, for the reading of an ordinance of short-term rentals. I'll need a motion to put that out. Counselor Petropoulos,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Peeler. Any discussion about establishing a public hearing? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Aye.
Counselor Brennan,
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield,
Nay.
Counselor Levin,
I'll join Whitfield with a no on that.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye.
Counselor Morocco,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Carried.
Next is the first reading of an ordinance to establish the short-term rental ordinance as written, and I'm going to pass the baton to David West to help me here.
You don't want me to actually read the whole
No,
thing,
thank you.
right? Great.
Just maybe a summary of some quick things we changed or something like that.
Absolutely. So since our working group meeting on Monday, we made a few small changes to bring forward, and I'm just trying to bring those up right now. They were based directly on your comments. We had a couple of clarifications to put in. So there was one section about inspections. We removed some wording so that it's clear that there is one sentence that says when you sign up for a license, you're signing up for the property to be inspected by code enforcement at any time if they believe there's a violation. The other section is that when you do the application, there's an inspection related with the application. So that's been clarified. We also changed, there was a section in the definition of dwelling to include one or more dwelling units within the building. It previously said one or two. Thank you. And added page numbers.
That's good.
And if I may, the handout I just provided, we provided earlier today, but is just the rental cost estimates basing information on how many units we think there could be. So it's estimating between 230 bedrooms to 334 bedrooms. And then some of the understanding about the different expense costs that go into monitoring these units, making sure people are well informed, using the Rentalscape license, and then compliance of these units, as well as potential litigation. So there's a number of factors. Again, this will be modified as we learn more about what we're doing.
And just for a point of reference, that is for the justification of the fee per bedroom that we'll be addressing after the second reading
Correct.
of this ordinance. Okay. No further, any discussion on the ordinances coming before us? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
This is just to set the-
I'm sorry. We need a motion and a second. I missed that part. I need a motion on the first reading of the ordinance for short-term rentals. I have Counselor Gilat, seconded by Counselor Morocco. Any discussion? Okay, clerk, please call the roll. We talked
Counselor
about this a
Gilat?
lot.
Aye.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Nay.
Counselor Lavin?
No.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Carried.
Do we have anything for boards and commissions tonight?
Yeah, I got a couple things.
Okay, please go ahead. Oh, excuse me, I missed one thing. Discussion on committees, we added to the agenda. I'm gonna ask Counselor Lavin to lead off.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, it's probably exhausting everyone, including myself, but just tonight, if we had had formal committees that handled things first, we would have had an analysis of the quarterly financial report, had the questions answered, and brought work forward to the council in the form that we think it should be. We could have had the discussion of the waterfront development for kayaks in a economic development committee and brought forward a recommendation and been done with it. And I'm suggesting that this is not a wild, crazy, left-wing idea. This is what all governments do, is they have committees that both get the councilors more engaged in a deeper understanding of the departments that run the city. Not to run those departments, but to have a deeper understanding so that when materials come to the council, they can be put on what's called a consent agenda for a lot of things that you don't need to pour over here because the committee has already done its work. And we don't do that here. It slows everything down. We'll probably take another 5 weeks to figure out where that kayak's going when it could have been done tonight and been ready for the season. So my suggestion is that we do what every other government does, which is assign committees with the chairperson selected by the mayor, approved by the council, second member of the council on that committee. Sometimes they're 30-minute meetings the day before the council meeting or the week before the council meeting. The city of Rochester does this. The city of Syracuse does this. Congress does this. The county of Ontario does this. And it really makes our work much more transparent. How do you get things on the agenda? Here it's sort of a little bit of a mom and pop operation, and that the public sees things and discovers them at these meetings that go on for way too long. And so all I'm suggesting here is this is a change to government the way it's done virtually everywhere else for the benefit of the people. And as I said, I've been in government in my own way for 40 years and find our way of doing it to be slow, opaque, and exclusionary to the public. They're always surprised by what comes up, and things are baked before they get to the meetings in very private ways. So I think it would demand more of the council members, because they'd have to come and take some stewardship on behalf of the mayor and the rest of the council for filtering things that are coming to the council. But day after day here and meeting after meeting, I see things that could have raced with much more scrutiny to conclusion as we move on and take on things. We have a lot on our plates, and we have 9 council people. They don't all have to go to every council meeting. Some would be head of finance, somebody else would be head of economic development. But it's the best practices of government are pretty clear. This is one of them. Small little towns in Chemung County or Wyoming County, maybe they don't do that because there's less on the agenda. We have a $20 million business here with no finance committee. That's unseen in my experience in government, and I just think it would be a good thing for us, open up the process and demand more of the council people to understand what the committees or what the departments are bringing forward before we throw it out here in a 5-hour meeting every month. That's it.
Councilor Peeler.
So, just to be clear, I believe the Ontario County Supervisor's annual salary is what, 15,000, 17,000? Okay, so
You want a raise?
we always hear about, people throw around these buzzwords. They virtue signal a lot. We're here for the working man. We're here for the blue collar guy. We care about the middle class. It's too bad those people don't serve in the government. Well, how are they going to if they're going to be bogged down by committees all the time? This is a 4-hour meeting, and we came from an hour meeting before that. You want to protect the working class, you have to cultivate an environment where they can participate. Okay, so there it is. So, I'm like the lowest tier in I'm a laborer. All right, I'm a laborer. What about you? CEO?
Been laboring
So
for 40
there's
years.
right, and so we have a very affordable city council. We get paid like what, $4,000 a year, right? So the reason why it's affordable is because there's an expectation that some of our stuff is going to be packaged and digested and worked very diligently by a very well-paid staff. Okay, leaders in their field. So if we bog everything down in a committee, it's also going to place power in those who generally don't have to work for someone else, right? You're gonna lose your job to be city council. You're right. How's that? So I think we are a small town, right? And we do take an oath to be at every meeting. So it's really important that we kind of get things digested all the same, not always behind committees, and it might place the decision-making spin, because don't forget, everything you receive is going to be digested and reformatted for your ears. We get that from different people, and it's going to place power in an inequitable format for people who have time to go to these committees. And what, are we going to pay everybody more? Does everyone want $15,000 a year like Ontario County? I'm glad that we're cheap, because that's savings for y'all. And me too, because I live here, and my whole family. So I want to be able to do things frugally. Not just fiscally responsible, but frugally. So I don't agree with this. I think we can definitely take things properly, and the real issue is that we don't generally get a lot of our information properly digested and formatted for our decisions that should only take a week of review or 3 work days of review. All right, if we got to have a work session and work like tonight, all these RFPs. this is something that needs to be digested. These are like, each one of these is like 20 pages long, right? You're gonna do that, you're gonna read that 24 hours before the meeting, and you got a job, and you got, kids in school and all that other stuff, so I think, I don't agree with this. I think it's gonna place power in the hands of an even more select few people to digest information and get it to the taxpayer.
Just before I continue discussion, I just want to frame the discussion, because if we did move to a committee-based structure, it would be up to this council to, a majority of this council, to provide direction to staff, number one, to outline the process, and bring it back to us. And, so, and I guess the big thing is, coming out of the discussion is not a vote. Coming out of the discussion is more direction to staff. So we need to be able to be coherent in our comments, and we need to be able to be precise on what we would like to achieve from this.
All right, I'll help you out with that. I do not direct staff to increase the bureaucracy of the city by making more committees.
Councilor Gilat.
My only comment is, we have trouble filling our boards now, our committees now. I've lived in Geneva all my life, and some of you probably would agree. It's not a slam, it's reality. Apathy grows very long and hard here. It's hard to get people involved. Everybody's busy. Everybody's got their life ahead of them. And we're, like I said, we're having trouble we're getting one person to apply for 7 committees. We're not getting a lot of people applying for all these committees. We're having trouble filling the boards we have now. I couldn't imagine trying to fill, boards like that. I just can't see it happening.
Councilor Petropoulos?
Well, I've served on both committees and as a county supervisor. We compare Geneva to Syracuse and Rochester in Congress. Well, the supervisors have 21 members, so that means 7 people per committee, so every supervisor gets to be on 2 committees, but that's elected officials only. They don't have civilians from boards that, as Councilor Gilat said, may or may not be properly staffed. I believe that we were elected, and it is our job to do whatever extra work we need to do to get the work done. Even if it takes us 3 sessions, we know we're doing it right. And, I mean, with 9 people, what is it, 3 per committee? Yeah, how are we going to do that? I don't see any way to do it, and I definitely don't think that unelected people should be, even if they're appointed. I was on one of the boards. We were advisory only. People thought we had an axe. We didn't. We can only make a recommendation to council, and it is up to council to either follow through or not follow through. And I was fine with that. It was a lot of work, but I volunteered. I was on that committee probably 5 years total. The important thing to remember is we as council were elected. Who are we accountable to? All of you. If you guys want something, you know where to find us, please. I'd love to engage, and I'm sure that goes for all of us. If you live in Ward 5, that's where I'm at. Look my number up online or just see me after the meeting. We'll talk. And that's the way things get done. I hear from constituents. My decisions here in council are based largely on those, and if they're conflicting, I find a middle ground. But only we as elected officials can do that. And yes, as Councilor Piola says, we do it pretty inexpensively.
I would appreciate that all counselors provide some kind of direction, because if it's less than 5 or 6, it's going to come back up again. So I'll give you my 2 cents, what you guys think about it. I think that the challenge to creating a change to committee is fairly enormous, has legal implications. As Councilor Peeler mentioned, transfer of power is an issue we ran into with the police review board, and it got kicked out of court. This could drive in a referendum for all I know. I don't know the details or the full length of complications to develop committees. I think my bigger concern is that when you go off on committees and you have smaller groups come back to the deciding group to place votes, that deciding group is going to need to get educated somehow. And I really think our current process is far from opaque. Everything happens on this council floor. Discussion happens on this council floor. Voting happens on this council floor. We discuss every resolution, ordinance, or local law that comes forward. Everybody here has the opportunity to add to that discussion. The challenge is do your homework, find out what's coming up on the agenda, find out what you want on the agenda, and be prepared when that comes up on the floor to have that discussion. If it's done in committees and brought to this body for a final vote, I, for one, am going to want to know all the details that how you came to the recommended decision, because I want to be able to explain that to my constituents. And I have the constituency of the whole city, so there's a lot of explaining to do out there. So that's, you know, I honestly don't see the value. I've looked at, and I appreciate I didn't compliment staff. Staff did some homework on this, and they provided us information on who has committees, who doesn't have committees, the size of the cities, whether it's a committee of the whole, whether it's individual subcommittees that come back to the governing body. So I appreciate that. And it wasn't carte blanche, and I don't think it is the best form of government that's out there from what I've seen from my look at the situation. Councilor Morocco, Councilor Whitfield, Councilor Grimaldi, Councilor Brennan.
Might be able to, the same we were talking about with the kayak. They throw 3 proposals at us and they want us to make a decision tonight. So now you're back saying you shouldn't have to digest that. The same way with the committees. You go with a committee routine, so it's basically the same principle. They're going to come up and then you got to go back and try to make a decision. You can't. You got to break it down. So it's a waste. I don't think we should have the committees set up like that.
It took us 3 months to get an organizational meeting together for the 9. We still haven't given the manager goals for the year, or the economic developer through the manager, same thing. Because we don't, we hide behind the committee of the whole. Your Honor, your description of a small group that's going to come to this place and explain everything is exactly the way we operate. A small group of people decide the agenda, bring it here, and it's already cooked and digested for the most part, and presented here in meetings that are way too long. Most places have a consent agenda, so when the council is convinced that something coming from committee doesn't require extra look, they put it on a one-vote consent agenda and then focus their time on the things that really matter, that they've decided on. But they have to, a counselor can go to any council committee meeting. I go to them in the county now for my other work. And they are very professional, and they are paid more. I agree with that, but I don't think we can rescind the good government here because it's inconvenient, and that's what I think we're doing.
I don't see anything about inconveniency here. And when you talk about a committee bringing it back to this for a vote, there's a gap there. And I've asked you before, Councilor Lavin, show me where the value of a committee is in our form of government, in our structure. And all I get is the same thing. Look at roster, look at Syracuse.
No, but I just showed you tonight. We could have had these things already resolved and analyzed.
The kayak, if we did our homework, we could have voted on it tonight. I was ready to.
Right.
I was ready to move along.
We'll take 6 weeks.
That's an assumption.
Well, it's what, how long did
Just
it
like
take us to get together?
Several assumptions about 6 months to get to stop a license. The license stops as soon as it hits a certain.
It does not. It does not.
You didn't listen.
Attorney. He didn't say that. They can take it away.
The license gets suspended, the license gets revoked. The only way the license comes back is through an appeal process.
I'm afraid that's not, the punishment has to come after an appeal. And in most legal proceedings, that's the case. But these are things that could be ironed out in much more detail before we're doing it here with a group of exhausted citizens and tired council people, and not doing a pretty good job of it. As you said, we could have had it done tonight.
Why is this meeting long right now?
Right? I think the monthly meeting should be 2 hours. One for the public, an hour for public speaking, and then action. The other stuff should happen in committee unless it needs discussions. That's my view.
Depends on the amount of the agenda
Right.
and how many people want to allow.
But I just don't think we're doing a good job, and I think the public will tell you that.
That's your perception.
It is.
The public's definitely not telling me that. So I'm hearing from a different public than you are, and I'd be happy to hear from any public.
How long did you discuss the New York project?
Let's keep moving on the agenda, please.
You're more than welcome to contact me outside this meeting, and we can have that discussion, believe me. It's just public comment stops. Okay. We're gonna move on?
Yeah, boards and commission.
Appointments to boards and commissions.
All right, so I've been notified that we had a resignation from the planning board. Michael John has resigned his position, and I want to thank him for his service in that role. And we have an appointment of Wesley Greco for that vacancy, and he has already applied and interviewed.
So
I'd like to
made a
put,
motion?
that's motion to appoint Wesley Greco for the planning board.
Seconded by Counselor Gilat. Any discussion on the appointment? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Brennan,
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Counselor Lavin,
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Aye.
Counselor Morocco,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino,
Aye.
carried.
I do have one more thing to say. I think Pete's got one he's gonna propose. I'll let you do that first, but then I want to make a general.
Okay, I got a couple, actually. LDC, I'm sorry. LDC would like us to appoint Catherine Price to fill their vacant seat. So I make a motion that we approve Catherine Price to the LDC committee.
Seconded by Counselor Petropoulos. Any discussion? She's in the audience, so be careful.
Ha!
Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye.
Counselor Brennan,
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Counselor Levin,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Aye.
Counselor Morocco,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Carried.
Okay, the rec committee reached out to me. They want to reinstate Joan Barnard on the rec committee. So I make a motion to reinstate Joan Barnard on the rec committee.
Joan Bernard.
Oh, thank you.
I live next to her, that's why I know.
That's a reappointment?
Yes. Counselor Petropoulos seconded it. Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye. Are you saying yes or no?
Yes. Already done?
Say yes to her.
Yes. It's getting late.
Thank you.
It's getting late.
Counselor Brennan,
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Counselor Levin,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Aye.
Counselor Morocco,
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Carried.
Okay, Geneva Industrial Development Agency reached out to me for two. First one, I make a motion to appoint
Do both of
Catherine.
them together.
What are we doing? All right, we have two. They're both open seats, so the IDA would like us to appoint Catherine Price and Jan Reagan. I make a motion to approve both Catherine Price and Jan Reagan on the IDA.
Second. Counselor Morocco seconds it. Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Gilat,
All right,
Counselor Brennan,
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield,
Aye.
Counselor Lavin,
Aye.
Counselor Peeler,
Can I just put a pause on this vote? I want to make sure that the director of BID can exist on both the IDA and LDC boards simultaneously, because for me, it's okay, but if there's an appearance issue, I want to make sure that we got that covered.
I had a conversation with Catherine Price, and she's more than capable, based on what they want her to do.
Yes, but there may be a
I think
conflict.
he's talking about a legal issue.
Yeah, I'm talking about because, for example, the city councilor who was the liaison for bid, had to exit the board of bid to be on that role. So I'm just want to make sure that we're not going to do anything that's going to put us in jeopardy or appearance questions.
Right.
I fully support Mrs. Price.
Yeah.
So I'll turn it over to Robert in a second, but I ran this by the IDA and LDC's attorney. He said there's no reason. We could actually, interestingly, and we're not going there, but you could have the boards be the same person, which would be kind of convenient to meet at the same time. And that'd be a streamlined way of doing things, but there's no issue. With the bid board, there's a specific bylaw in there that doesn't want council
Okay.
members, but it's not required.
All right, very good. Aye.
Yeah. It's just that when you got somebody voting on one thing that affects the other group, a lot of times, at least I've always found, that becomes a conflict.
Yeah, I would agree with David's opinion and obviously the opinion of the attorney for those boards. I don't see a conflict in this situation.
Okay, because
But it is a correct thought. It's something we'll all
Yeah.
look
There might be needed an abstention at some point if there's a vote that's going to
Yes,
financially
any-
impact bid.
Right,
Right.
anything that financially impacted the bid, Catherine would need to recuse from.
There's one committee you can't vote on,
No, but I felt like
right? You're not voting on one of them, right?
So this would give me the ability to vote on both
Okay.
boards.
All right.
I'm attending both meetings all the time anyway, so this is a great opportunity to go downtown and have a voice.
So Clerk, Counselor Peeler said aye, and I'm not sure where you are in the roll call.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'm Patty. I don't know. I know you can't sit on the school board.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Nay.
Counselor Morocco.
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Carried.
You got more? Counselor Peeler, you had more or
Yeah,
comment?
real quick, I just want to encourage the public to apply for our boards. We have two current vacancies on the Zoning Board of Appeals. It came up several times tonight as an entity that's going to happen for the appeal process and the STR violations. And we also have plenty of seats open on the Human Rights Commission. So please submit those applications, check the boards that you're most interested in, and we will get you vetted and interviewed for those positions. Thank you.
Okay, next is mayor and council reports, and we'll start with Councilor Brennan and come around.
Quickly, Tom Burrell has provided $300 in firewood sales to the city for the month of April. I didn't bring it with me, Stephanie, but believe me, I'm good for it. I'll bring it tomorrow. And Shade Tree Committee had a very successful day at Mission Zero. They did give away a lot of trees, and they're just as active as can be. And it's a great service. You've heard me say that before, but it's a great service they provide. And the HDC, Historic Districts Commission, will meet later on in this month for an organizational meeting to kind of get that ball rolling again, because it's been on a kind of hiatus for the last 4 months. That's it.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Lavin.
Just one question from the neighborhood. Are we getting the food into the transfer station, the place to drop off old food? Is that still on hold?
So it's I mentioned the hours during my city manager's report. It's the debris and compost on Wednesdays and Saturdays. They're still having drop-offs.
Drop off of food?
Yep,
Waste
food
as well?
scraps, yep.
That was-
Compost and yard debris.
All set?
Yeah, that's it.
Counselor Peeler.
Planning board met last month, and let's see, some of the summary of that event was there was a approval of a photovoltaic project on a residential home, and that was great and reminiscent for me since I have the exact same facility on my house. And let's see, the DeSales project is moving forward. That was moving forward, and there was some brief discussion on the modification of the short-term rental process that we have removing the special use permit, and there was some relief in that as well, because there was some concern about that being a tidal wave of planning board meetings to discuss special use permits. I do want to make a couple public comments. One, I have residents that are very keen on what we're doing for Memorial Day and what we're doing for 4th of July. And Geneva was a big 4th of July town. We had fireworks, and since the American Legion has moved out of their property, We don't really have a 4th of July festival or carnival or anything with fireworks. So I'm just kind of putting that out there for the American Legion. If this is an opportunity for the American Legion and for BID and for the city of Geneva to do something at Lakefront Park, we've had plenty of other places have carnivals down there, and even though Sampson has a wonderful display, I still want to bring it home for Geneva. All right, and that's just my opinion. So and that's kind of where I'm at on that. I do want to say that. Son of a gun, I lost it because I was so thinking about those fireworks. I'm sorry.
Just nod me when you're ready and you can remember.
Yes, it's about Ann. So here's the thing. I would like to make a suggestion that we modify our agenda because I think Ms. Price needs more time and I think Ann needs more time, and they're not representing the public and Ann's not representing the public. This is the BID president and this is the Green Committee president. So they were chair. So to be involved in public comment and getting 3 minutes, I don't know if is quite appropriate because we would never limit a counselor who's the Green Committee liaison to give the Green Committee report. So I don't know. I think they should be moved to another area, kind of like how we have the report for the county administrator gives his report. He doesn't give 3 minutes, and that's my 2 cents on that because I think this is important stuff, and I don't want to limit you guys whatsoever. I want you guys to be able to have the time to tell the public what you're doing because you're doing good things.
Counselor, just for clarification, I never limit Ann because I know she's reporting for a committee.
The thing goes off. It's very stressful.
Wait, let me finish. I wouldn't want to put her at the end for appointments or for council reports, mayor and council reports. So their assignments. So I will continue to let her do it at the beginning. I have no problem with that, and I won't limit her time. Councilor Grimaldi.
It's not public comment, right? This is not.
Call it what you want. It's a great report from Ann.
It is.
Housing Authority, their meeting went pretty smooth. They did some talking about their scattered housing, and they are presently remodeling apartments, about a half a dozen at a time in each of their projects. So it seems to be going good, I guess. So that was basically their meeting.
Councilor Jot.
You're gonna hate me. Okay. BID. Anything wrong, let me know. They're in the midst of or producing or co-producing over 25 events. I think you don't realize what's going on with a lot of this stuff, but they continue to host Live from Linden and Linden Wine Series and a week of garlic themed activities leading up to the glorious Garlic Festival. Just for FYI, a few new businesses in town. Some are already open. Hudson Hat Company will be located on 134 Castle Street. You got Hernandez Mexican Store, which moved up to new location 492, 494 Exchange. Esther's Son's Kitchen is located now at 14 Castle Street. You have Murphy's Market moved across the street to 510 Exchange. New card shops going into 433 Exchange. It'll be GI cards and collectibles. I think they're ready to open. Kevin Wee has opened up the Sideshow, which used to be a popular place back when my kids were going crazy. So it's back. I think the Squirt Gun's back too, I heard. For those that remember that. First Fridays, April 5th, May 3rd, June 7th, July 5th, August 2nd. Geneva BID and the Dove Block are partnering to bring back these events. It'll be all summer long. They have different things going on. You can check the website to get more information on that. Cruising Night, it's back to one night a week. It'll be on Friday, July 26th from 5 to 10. Vehicle registration forms are available at the BID office or downloaded from the website. Interested vendors can do the same. And Kayak Paddle Fest, June 29th at the lakefront. What else is going on? And Garlic Festival will be August 3rd and 4th. That'll be Saturday and Sunday. There's a new vendor out of Rochester that's managing this event, and they worked hard to get this person in place, so it's back, and it should be bigger and better than ever, if I understand. So that's all I got.
You're a tree killer there. Councilor Petropoulos.
Excuse me. So we had the LDC meeting today. I want to welcome Catherine Price to the LDC. She has been officially voted to fill the vacancy. Real quick, the LDC discussed forming smaller groups to concentrate on housing, small businesses, and community amenities. The upcoming tunnel mural was discussed, and basically that should start over the summer. And I also brought up something I'm working on separately through the Free and Accepted Masons. We have the Eagle Scouts build benches it's all about the battle within, which is about veteran suicide. We want to, keep these benches. I discussed it with our city manager, and right now where we're at is we agree the 9/11 Memorial will be the best place for that kind of a bench. It's going to have a plaque on it. It's going to have a hotline number that, for veteran suicide prevention. That could be changed out if the number changes. The idea is one of us, or anyone can sit on the bench, and if a veteran wants to come sit, maybe talk to that person. Where we're at that, the LDC wants to get in on that. Chairman Talmadge suggested perhaps when I talk to Buildings and Grounds about it, they may want to get in on it and have their own little plaque on it, paid for by the LDC. So that'd be great. It won't cost the city anything. The cement slab or the bench going to sit would be the only thing. So I'm going to discuss that down the road. The only other thing I have is my feedback on the eclipse. All right, so I went around, walked up and down Exchange Street to the businesses, see how things are going. As our city manager said, it was really good for pretty much all the businesses down there. No incidents, everything was orderly. But what I heard from visitors, they love Geneva. Now I know when I grew up in New York City, we always groused about it, but really, part of the thing of rebuilding community is that we concentrate on the positive aspects of our city. We are in a better location in Canandaigua, or we don't have the crime rate Ithaca has, et cetera, et cetera. We're doing okay. Let's love each other. Welcome visitors. They all love it. They'll be back. Things are looking up there. But I applaud city staff on an incident-free. I didn't know what to expect, but it really, really went well. And again, thank you, city staff. Thanks to our visitors. Come again in 90 years? I forget when the next one is. But that's all I got. Thanks.
Councilor Morocco.
Tag, you're it.
The only thing I got is I'm new to this game. I've been here a month and everything like that. And everybody here that when I talked to has been very accessible. They answer my questions, and I found it's a big learning curve. I've already had some responses. Oh, I'm sorry. I already had some responses from some of my constituents. And I dealt that today with Amy and stuff like that. And I'm learning the process, but everybody's been very helpful, and everybody's really nice to work with. So that's all I got.
Councilor Whitfield.
Just an update from the Recreation Department. They had a great month. They hosted multiple lacrosse tournaments and practices, Kanagasaga Dog Show, Role Model, and Career Day. Mission Zero event, and a great spring break recreation program for our local 5 to 11-year-olds. Soccer tots start this coming Monday night, and the Recreation Department will have a few spaces still available. This weekend, they are hosting a home show Friday afternoon and Saturday. Next Recreation Advisory Board meeting will be May 21st at the Recreation Complex. Summer Recreation Program registrations are available on their website.
Thank you. I met with Tom Harvey and Julie Berry from the Ontario County Economic Development Department to review the current status of the steering committee for the Ontario County Rail Corridor Development Area 2. Initial work with consultant has established data for evaluation. Overall goal of the steering committee is to review and analyze the data and provide recommendations that will lead to economic development opportunities leveraged by rail improvements, relocations, and site adjacent to the rail corridor. This includes the City of Geneva's rail yard north of 5 and 20. Next steering committee meeting is being scheduled, and after that we will start working on reaching out to the community to have community public sessions. Amy mentioned Memorial Day Parade. Don Wheeler is asking each one of the counselors if they are interested. He really urges you to be in the parade. He thinks it's important for the community to see the elected representatives in that. So please reach out to Mr. Wheeler and let him know that you are interested in being in the parade, and he will provide arrangements for you. I also met with Hobart and William Smith and Geneva Red Wings representatives on a new contract for Madonna Park. Staff has been working with them. I heard there was a few challenges. It was just an interesting conversation. A collaborative meeting is in review for use and maintenance of the park. We are glad to see the increase in use from the NCAA Division III Hobart team. I live up the street, and it's amazing that the lights are on. They're there. They've been there since January. It's just amazing what they're doing there, and hopefully they'll have work up to a successful season. And we're looking forward to the upcoming season of the Collegiate Geneva Red Wings season also. So those two groups are working together very effectively, and that park is going to be busy probably from January till September, if not better. Heads up on the 5 and 20 reconstruction taking place from Lake Street to State Park. I can't say that enough. It's probably going to get busier and more traffic issues. So just if you can avoid that area, you might be better off. I'd like to thank all counselors for their input, attendance, and efforts getting up to speed. Often I thank staff. I very seldom thank counselors. I think it's important. The enthusiasm, professionalism is refreshing and shows the community the commitment in moving Geneva in a positive direction. Also, a quick thank you, because last month we had the Hometown Hero banner situation here and a request for a funding gap, and I would like to thank Mary Benamino for reaching out and giving a generous donation to that. Thank you very much. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I don't know. I thought I see a bunch of hands come up at once. Councilor Peeler, seconded by Councilor Petropoulos. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.